kesetaraan justru menjadi value utama yang kita hormati dan kita junjung bersama dalam bingkai persatuan dan kebersamaan sehingga kapal besar ASEAN dapat terus melaju. Kita sadar dunia memang sedang tidak baik-baik saja. Tantangan masa depan semakin berat dan mengakibatkan perebutan pengaruh oleh kekuatan besar. Tapi ASEAN sudah sepakat untuk tidak menjadi proksi bagi kekuatan manapun, untuk bekerja sama dengan siapapun bagi perdamaian dan kemakmuran. Jangan jadikan kapal kami, ASEAN, sebagai arena rivalitas yang saling menghancurkan, tapi jadikanlah kapal ASEAN ini sebagai ladang untuk menumbuhkan kerjasama, untuk menciptakan kemakmuran, menciptakan stabilitas, menciptakan perdamaian yang tidak hanya bagi kawasan, tapi juga bagi dunia. Yang mulia, samudra dunia terlalu luas untuk dilayari seorang diri. Dalam perjalanan kita akan ada kapal-kapal lainnya, kapal-kapal mitra ASEAN. Mari kita bersama mewujudkan kerjasama yang setara dan saling menguntungkan untuk berlayar bersama menuju epicentrum of growth. Dan dengan mengucap Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, KTT ke-43 ASEAN dan KTT lainnya dengan ini resmi saya nyatakan dibuka. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We kindly ask you to remain on the stage. Your Majesty, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before proceeding further into the ceremony, we would like to kindly invite all ASEAN leaders to come to the stage for a group photo session. Allow me to count in 3, 2, 1. Now in the ASEAN way. In 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Your Majesty and Your Excellencies. We kindly request President Joko Widodo and all leaders to return to your respected seats. Let us also take this special moment to recognize and celebrate the remarkable accomplishments which shape the ASEAN community. The ASEAN Prize 2022 and 2023 awarding ceremony. The recipient of the ASEAN Prize 2023, Mrs. Nguyen Thi Tuyet Min, a prominent advocate for women's socio-economic empowerment from Vietnam. Her unwavering commitment has marked a significant contribution towards the ASEAN economic community building. Let us also announce the recipient of the ASEAN Prize 2022, Mr. Haji Muhammad Iqbal Fakhri bin Haji Damit, a youth advocate and community leader from Brunei Darussalam who promotes an inclusive community-based development, contributing to a more resilient ASEAN community. We would proudly invite Mrs. Nguyen Thi Tuyet Min and Mr. Haji Muhammad Iqbal Fakhri bin Haji Damit to the stage. Allow us to invite the Secretary General of ASEAN, Your Excellency Dr. Kao Kim Un, to the stage. We also kindly request Your Excellency President Joko Widodo to join on stage for the ASEAN Prize presentation ceremony. Let us count down for the photo session. In 3, 2, 1. While His Excellencies President Joko Widodo and Dr. Kao Kim Un are kindly requested to remain on the stage, we cordially ask the ASEAN Prize recipients to return to their seats. We now invite the Minister of Environment and Forestry of the Republic of Indonesia, Your Excellency Mrs. Siti Nurbaya, to proceed to the stage. Your Majesty, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, with great delight and enthusiasm, let us witness the soft launching of the ASEAN Coordinating Center for Transboundary Haze Pollution Control. We kindly request Your Excellency President Joko Widodo to proceed with the soft launching of the ACC-THPC. Allow us to count in 3, 2, 1. Let us give a big round of applause for the newly launched center. We have witnessed the soft launching of the center, which will enhance ASEAN's commitment in managing the impact of land and forest fires, particularly haze pollution. Let us forge a path towards a haze-free future and a more sustainable ASEAN. Your Majesty, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the opening ceremony of the 43rd ASEAN Summit and related summits 2023. Today, not only have we come together to celebrate the achievements of our union, but we also forged new paths towards progress and unity. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the departure of the leaders. Once again, thank you for your unwavering support. Let us continue to work hand in hand, building a stronger and more vibrant ASEAN as the epicentrum of growth. Have a pleasant day, and we wish you a productive meeting on the 43rd ASEAN Summit.
Please be seated.
Sri Baginda, Yang Mulia para pemimpin ASEAN, selamat datang di KTT ke-43 ASEAN di Jakarta. Saya ingin menyambut Yang Mulia Hun Manet, Perdana Menteri Kamboja, serta Yang Mulia Sanana Gusmao, Perdana Menteri Timor Leste. Selamat bergabung, Yang Mulia, di keluarga besar ASEAN. Para pemimpin ASEAN yang saya hormati, semua dari kita menyadari besarnya tantangan dunia saat ini, di mana kunci utama untuk menghadapinya adalah kesatuan dan sentralitas ASEAN. Arah ASEAN jelas menjadi epicentrum of growth. Modal ASEAN besar untuk meraihnya, tapi ASEAN harus mampu bekerja lebih keras, lebih kompak, lebih berani, dan lebih gesit. Selain itu, ASEAN juga butuh strategi taktis jangka panjang yang relevan dan sesuai harapan rakyat, yang tidak hanya untuk 5 tahun ke depan, tapi 20 tahun ke depan sampai 2045. Dan saya mengapresiasi dukungan negara anggota ASEAN dalam pembahasan ASEAN Concord ke-4. Yang Mulia, ASEAN sebagai bagian dari kawasan Indo-Pasifik juga terus konsisten bekerja keras, baik menggunakan pendekatan inklusif melalui kerjasama sekretariat ASEAN dengan Sekretariat Pacific Island Forum, PIF, dan Indian Ocean Rim Association, IORA, maupun pendekatan ekonomi dan pembangunan melalui ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum, sehingga ASEAN bisa berdampak bagi rakyatnya dan juga bagi dunia. ASEAN sebagai kapal besar memiliki tanggung jawab yang juga besar pada ratusan juta jiwa rakyat yang berlayar bersama di dalamnya. Dan walaupun harus berlayar di tengah badai, kita sebagai para pemimpin ASEAN harus memastikan bahwa kapal ini mampu terus melaju, mampu terus berlayar, dan kita harus menjadi nahkoda di kapal kita sendiri untuk mewujudkan perdamaian, mewujudkan stabilitas, mewujudkan kemakmuran bersama. Dan dengan ini saya nyatakan KTT ke-43 ASEAN sesi pleno dibuka. Selanjutnya, sebelum kita mulai sesi pleno yang akan dilakukan secara tertutup dengan hormat, saya mohon awak media untuk meninggalkan ruangan pertemuan. Terima kasih.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Very good morning, His Excellency Mr. Febrio Kacaribu, Chairman of Fiscal Policy Agency, Ministry of Finance of Republic of Indonesia. Good morning. The Honorable Mr. Pargiono, Assistant Minister for Macroeconomic and International Finance, Ministry of Finance of Republic of Indonesia. And also our moderator, Mr. Rahmat Kaimuddin, Deputy for Infrastructure and Transportation Coordination, Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment Affairs. Mr. Nur Syaifuddin, Senior Policy Analyst, Fiscal Policy Agency, Ministry of Finance of Republic of Indonesia. And also Ms. Pande Putuoka Kusumardani, Head of Center for State Revenue Policy. And also our prominent speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely, it's a pleasure to welcome all of you to the Jakarta on Seminar on Energy Transition Mechanism, ASEAN Country Updates. My name is Rima Budiarti. I'm from Ministry of Finance of Republic of Indonesia. And absolutely it's an honor for me to be your master of ceremony for today's seminar. First of all, let us extend our warmest and most sincere welcome to Jakarta, Indonesia. And since now we are in Jakarta, I would like to present one of traditional culture from Betawi called pantun. Jalan-jalan ke Jatinegara, jangan lupa beli pepaya. Selamat datang di ibu kota Jakarta, miniatur budaya Indonesia nan jaya. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our seminar today, may I inform you about today's seminar that will divide it into 3 sessions. The first session is about introduction and roundtable of energy transition mechanism in Indonesia. And the second session will discuss about country update on energy transition mechanism. And the last session will talk about road to just and affordable transition. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates, Now we will start the event with opening speech from Chairman of Fiscal Policy Agency, Ministry of Finance of Republic of Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Febrio Kacaribu.
Good morning, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Friends from non-Indonesian, those are sort of like the set of greetings that we've been doing for how many years now in Indonesia. We say greetings in many different background of languages and cultures. So that's just again reflecting how diverse Indonesia is, and also to that note, how diverse ASEAN is really. Today we are gathered here on a very important occasion here, providing us with valuable opportunities to gain updates and progress on energy transition mechanism in Indonesia, in ASEAN. I look at very familiar faces here from Indonesia side, but also friends from many countries as well from ASEAN, and most particularly also our partners have been working with us for quite some time now, building the logic and also the policy and also the projects together on the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, as an emerging market and developing economy, Indonesia takes a crucial leadership role in green transition towards low carbon economy. Last year, Indonesia submitted an enhanced NDC to the UNFCCC Secretariat with an increased emission reduction target to 31.89%. It's very detailed. Why don't we just call it 32? Sometimes I don't remember. I don't know why. But unconditionally, we promise 43.2%. Now, this enhanced NDC represents even greater ambition compared to previous Indonesia's updated NDC, which will align with our long-term low carbon and climate resilience strategy 2050 with a vision to achieve $1 billion by 2030. It was projected to be fulfilled by public and private investment. With this increased ambition, in fact, Indonesia cannot solve the global public good problem by himself. Now, transition and green investment are clearly flourishing in Indonesia. This due to, among others, the government of Indonesia has issued a number of fiscal incentives to attract private investment in green projects and green industry, including, among others, tax holidays, tax allowances, as well as facilities on VAT. There's also import duty and also property tax involved. These policies have fruitfully cultivated a climate of transitional investment and green investment in Indonesia, notably with the electric vehicle supply chain. For instance, there's an estimate by Institute for Essential Services Reform. This is estimate by ISR 2023. During the period of 2021-2022, Indonesia managed to attract investment commitments amounting to $20.3 billion in the electric vehicle supply chain. The largest share of this investment was directed towards battery production, reaching a total of $15 billion. Fiscal incentives and downstreaming policy in green industry are expected to curb carbon emission by about 15 million tons of CO2 equivalent. We also mobilize funds through innovative financing by issuing green sukuk of $6.2 billion and SDG bonds up to 577 million US dollars, both at the global and national level, which are expected to reduce about 10.6 million CO2 emissions. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia also has issued regulations framework to implement carbon pricing and tax. This policy will utilize carbon trading and non-trade instruments, one of which we call carbon tax, and also upcoming is carbon market that we are preparing to launch by the end of the year. This is to internalize the external cost of greenhouse gas emissions under the principle of polluters pay principle. In addition, Indonesia also plans to implement this piloting of carbon market by the end of the year, regulated and supervised by Indonesia's Financial Sector Authority, OJK. Now I'm going to move on a little bit about transition finance. With many initiatives that I have mentioned above, we realize that more efforts still needed to reach the financing need of our NDC to give actual contribution to reduce global greenhouse gas emission, while also keeping the pace of growth and our own development. In this regard, I believe that the key in achieving is our growth-friendly climate action lays on what we call transition finance. This is because transition finance involves providing financial services and products to high carbon emitting industries to support the transition towards decarbonization in the short to medium term. In G20, under G20 Indonesia presidency last year, the transition finance framework was commenced as a guidance for developing policies and financial services to support the climate-related transition. Indonesia, in this regard, launched and continued to develop our Energy Transition Mechanism Country Platform as an example on how we pursue the financing for transition in energy sector in Indonesia. Now I'm going to go a little bit deeper on this ETM, and I'm going to mention a little bit about JETP as well. Indonesia is proud to be among committed countries in energy transitions. Collaborating with ADB since the beginning, Government of Indonesia launched the Energy Transition Mechanism during the COP26 at Glasgow, aiming to accelerate retirement and repurposing of coal-fired power plants, and also scale up replacement clean energy technology. Indonesia established the Indonesia ETM country platform. Pak Edwin is the manager of this country platform in Indonesia with his PTSMI. And this is as a blended finance framework that will mobilize financial resources to support and also support from international partners, including multilateral and bilateral institutions, philanthropies, and also private sectors for this just and affordable energy transition. Now, our ETM country platform, through international partnership and commitments, we have secured the funding from Climate Investment Fund. This is $500 million of highly concessional fund for Indonesia. This will be leveraged up to additional $4 billion by the ADB, World Bank, and others, including the government of Indonesia. From this approved amount, the priority in the short term will be focused on accelerating early retirement of 2 projects of total retirement of 1.7 gigawatts of coal-fired power plants. The key challenge is on the involvement of the private sector, where there are still no strong engagement. In considering the risk assessment, we realize that the portion of low-cost financing from concessional flow of fund is really crucial in determining the project return. The lower concessional pricing country platform can obtain. Clearly, the more flexibility the country has to develop mechanisms that could ensure acceptable credit risk and also a just transition for investors, lenders, and all related parties. So when we look at it, we're clearly talking about market mechanism. We're clearly trying to internalize all of the cost, and we will determine how much will it cost us to decarbonize. Once we get the number based on market mechanism, also with market mechanism principles, we ask who should bear the cost, how much each party would actually take parts in terms of bearing the cost. Now, I'm going to mention a little bit about Just Energy Transition Partnership, JETP. This is a commitment published by IPG countries, $10 billion from public sector and $10 billion from private financial institutions. These are commitments. With this international support, we will work together. What it means is, again, Indonesia is open for business. Indonesia is open for transition and green investment. Commitments are very much welcome. Numbers can be announced, $10 billion here, $5 billion there, another $10 billion from that side. But at the end of the day, it will boil down to transactions. It will boil down to how do you calculate the return from the investment? And how do you refine and redefine what we mean by return in this transition and green investment in Indonesia and all over the world? Our first hunch saying that it is not going to be the conventional way of defining return on investment. From the beginning, everybody knows that. From the beginning, everybody knows this is going to involve the idea, the notion of decarbonization. Who should bear the cost? Then the market mechanism will actually help us to talk about how we do the transactions. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about another regulatory framework that we've done, not only in Indonesia, but also more importantly now in ASEAN. The key challenge to transition finance is clearly the involvement of the private financing. To mobilize private investment, there is a need to establish a credible approach to identify and labeling transition activities. This is to ensure that the private sector participation would be seen not as greenwashing. In addition, to accelerate our global climate transition effort, emerging economies developing need access to fair and adequate resources in timely manner, just like we discussed before. In this regard, Indonesia, during this year, ASEAN chairmanship, we managed together with ASEAN partners, ASEAN countries, to launch our ASEAN Taxonomy for Sustainable Finance version 2. I believe that many of you, or most of you, are already familiar with this. The ASEAN Taxonomy for Sustainable Finance version 2 is an example on how ASEAN members are working to enable an orderly transition and foster sustainable finance implementation. This taxonomy now has introduced, among others, coal phase out as an activity that will be classified as green or amber. Depends on the qualification of the projects. The ASEAN taxonomy serves as showcase of good, credible, implementable transition with interoperable taxonomy between regions and countries. The next challenge is on how to build this interoperability of the ASEAN taxonomy with others, such as EU taxonomy. So that's why we are very grateful to have our friends from EU attending today, and will be also speaking on this matter. Also with other countries. This is, of course, in order to boost more private sector involvement globally, not just regionally. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia continues to enhance international cooperation to advocate climate actions and to mobilize the private and public sector's finance for climate action. Indonesia is actively involved and continues to support and to show its leadership in leveraging sustainable financial ecosystem, including at the G20 Forum, ASEAN, and also, not to mention, Coalition of Ministers of Finance for Climate Action, where Indonesia is one of the co-chairs of the coalition. Indonesia also continues to enhance cooperation with stakeholders, such as Green Climate Fund has been instrumental help with Indonesia, Global Environment Facility, Adaptation Fund, international financial institutions, multilateral development banks, development partner countries, private sector, even including philanthropic institutions. We view that the need for global collaboration in order to create the ecosystem for green and transition industries, including for batteries, electric vehicles, and the green global supply chain. We all need to realize the importance and start to establish the global value chain for production, trade, and investment for green industries. Ladies and gentlemen, during Indonesia's 2023 ASEAN chairmanship, there is a resolute determination to elevate the energy transition program to the forefront of the ASEAN's priorities. The aspiration is for all ASEAN nations to collaboratively embark on a just and affordable energy transition. The ultimate goal is to seamlessly attain a low-carbon economy while simultaneously safeguarding our economic growth and preserving employment opportunities for those impacted. Let's engage in these enriching discussions today and wholeheartedly participate in this seminar. Wishing you all have a pleasant morning and fruitful discussions. And thank you very much for all of our collaborations and working together. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for the opening speech. Please remain on the stage. Mr. Febrio Kacaribu, please remain on the stage. We would like to have photo session together. And also we would like to invite Mr. Parigiono, all moderators and panelists, Eselon II Ministry of Finance of Republic of Indonesia, to come to the stage and to have a photo sessions together. Once again, we would like to invite all moderators and panelists, Eselon II Ministry of Finance of Republic of Indonesia, to come to the stage and to join the photo session together. Once again, we would like to invite Eselon II Ministry of Finance of Republic of Indonesia to join to the stage to take a photo session together. And now we would like to have photo session together. Please, you may give your warm smile. Please, you may give your warm smile, and 1, 2, 3. All right, once again. Once again, 1, 2, 3. Well, thank you. And please, you may have a seat. Once again, thank you for the photo session together. You may have a seat. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the first session of this seminar, Introduction and Roundtable of Energy Transition Mechanism in Indonesia. This session will explain the general framework of energy transition in Indonesia, and besides that, this session will also highlight the current state of Indonesia energy transitions along with the planned financing scheme. And before we start our session, let me introduce our moderator, Mr. Rahmat Kaimuddin, Deputy for Infrastructure and Transportation Coordination, Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment Affairs of Republic of Indonesia. And please welcome Mr. Rahmat Kaimuddin.
Okay, sorry. Allow me to introduce the panelists. Mr. Pargiono, Assistant Minister for Macroeconomics and International Finance, Ministry of Finance. Next panelist, Mr. Gigi Udiatmo, Director for Energy Conservation, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, or anyone representing. The next one will be Ms. Cynthia Rusli, Director of Finance from PT PLN. And last but not least, Mr. Paul Butar-Butar, Deputy Head of JATPI Secretariat. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning everyone. As Excellency Pak Febrio and all honored guests, I whispered to Pak Febrio just now, the best thing about the first moderator is that we don't have to repeat the context because the context has been very well explained by Pak Febrio and it's very, very fresh. So I'm just gonna jump right in with the discussion. So Indonesia, as part of the commitment for energy transition, has done multiple collaboration with international communities. And one of the strongest commitment is also in this energy transition mechanism. So, of course, energy transition is a technical problem as well as financial problem. And today with us, we have Pak Pargiono here from Ministry of Finance, who will help coordinate also the financing at some point on this one. So Pak Pargiono, we know that this ETM process has been ongoing for a while. I think it's been discussed in COP26 last time, and there's a lot of work that has been done by Indonesia, government of Indonesia, especially Ministry of Finance, both in issuing the regulation for fiscal support on accelerating energy transition, and also preparing for the pilot project together with MEMR. So, would you like to explain to us how far the regulation has been implemented, and what is the progress on the ETM pilot project, especially on the PLTO Cirebon? Please, Pak.
Terima kasih, thank you very much Pak Rahmat. Good morning, selamat pagi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. As already mentioned by Pak Rahmat, no need to repeat what I actually think that we have in the Ministry of Finance, because everything is done by Pak Febrio, then my job is actually done actually. Just, if I don't know whether some slide will be shown, but directly to the point that Pak Rahmat explains, some progress that we have in the Ministry of Finance. The first is on the CIF, SCT investment plans. Yeah. It's about 500 million in CIF-X funding together with 2.0 billion in MDV's co-financing, and nearly 1.3 in other co-financing. The investment plan aims to achieve the three main pillars: governance, peoples, and infrastructures. And this is already running so far, Pak Rahmat. And then when you pointed directly to the two projects, PT SME, Pak Edwin is here, and Indonesia Investment Authority are in the process of due diligence on the two energy transition mechanism projects. The first project is being conducted by INA with PT Cirebon Electric Power, which is about 660 megawatts, with a total investment of $877 million. The second project is being also conducted by PT SME with the PLTU Pelabuhan Ratu, which is about 1,050 megawatts with an asset value of 12 trillion in local currency rupiah. And then currently on this mechanism, Ministry of Finance is also developing a regulation on ETM country platforms that Pak Febrio mentioned. That if you have slide, I think better to mention to open in the slide 12. This is what I mentioned. Okay. On the ATM country platforms, it regulates the governance of energy transition mechanism and also flowing of the financing process for the ATM, which include governments, investment, and also concessional loans, guarantee, and PPP that Pak Febrio mentioned, from the de-risking, also the side from the government that can provide, including the incentive from the tax, including also the guarantee and de-risking. And then also we have what we call it Indonesia Investment Guarantee (PTPII), which also doing the on the way. And then on the process, if I just go more deeply on the energy transition mechanism country platform structure, let me start with if you have already ideas on the source of funding, on the purpose of projects, then we can help on the blended financing. Then you have to come directly to country platform that we have here. PT SME, Pak Edwin is in charge. Under PT SME as the country platforms, we are in the governments and coordinating ministers among us, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Energy, and Ministry of State-owned Enterprises, and other ministries related, will be on the steering board, who will in charge of assessing any proposals, any ideas of projects that we have from the PTSME proposed. Then we assessing for any government's support, whether this is the risking, commercial loans, technical assistance, or other subsidy, which later on the pricing. And then we also be working on the PTPII on the equity, low-cost refinancing, performance-based payments. And then PT SME will be assessing on that way. And further, we will come up with the Clean Energy Fund, or CEF, and then also the carbon reductions funds. I don't know whether you can open on the slide 12. The outcome on the energy transitions projects, certainly with the PLN in charge, is IPP project, is also on the pipelines projects. Then we can measure as well as on the carbon credits. And then the fourth one, Pak Rahmat, on the just transition is among the core also component, the fourth one of ETM, to provide a just transition strategy in Indonesia ETM. The strategic environment and social assessment is now being developed. The SESIA National Workshop has been also held last week in August, and the report is expected to be launched in this next month on October. I think this is for update that I could provide, Pak Rahmat. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you, Pak Pargiono. So basically, regulation is there, projects is there, And then platform is there, PTSMI. If you don't know, the leader of PTSMI is Pak Edwin here, the handsome gentleman in batik. So all the international bankers who want to provide blended finance can go contact Pak Edwin here. And of course, we need to make sure that there is a just mechanism as well that has been worked on. So yeah, I think we are ready to conduct this. So maybe the next, I would like to ask Bu Cynthia here as a representative of PLN. So what is the PLN plan on to support this energy transition mechanism? Please, Bu Cynthia.
Thank you, Pak Rahmat. So good morning, everyone. So we have been hearing the effort from the government. Once it's the regulatory framework and also the intention for the government to achieve the net NDC by 2030 with the enhanced NDC, and also the support from the global community in terms of the JETP platform as well as the local platform on the ETM country platform. I think from PLN as an operator, of course we need to also develop our own scenario which is workable with the global and the local platform, and in order to achieve the enhanced NDC and at least for PLN also to be able to deliver our net zero roadmap by 2060, so decarbonization plan. For PLN itself, we have actually translated the enhanced NDC for 31.9% by 2030 into what basically needs to be done within PLN and specifically in the electricity sector. So PLN needs to reduce by 2030 of 127 million tons of CO2 emissions, and that means by 2030 it has to be at the level of 370 million tons of CO2. And then we have developed various effort basically within PLN. So since planning, so last 2 years in 2021, PLN together with the MAMR have already started to develop our greenest RUPTL, meaning that we have already setting down the plan to develop more coal fire power plants. And we have also do a certain initiatives, efforts in co-firing, some other effort within the operational level to ensure that we are able to reduce our CO2 emissions. So by that, from the planning stage and up to the operational level at this moment, we have already been, in the planning stage, reducing the emission by 3.7 billion CO2 emissions. And after that, then along with the government policy and initiatives with the JETP and the plan towards the NDC, enhanced NDC by 2030, we also involve as an operator with the government in the technical working group, specifically developing a scenario. So I think JETP has already JETP Secretariat has already delivered their scenario assessment. I think yesterday Pak Rahmat has already led the meeting for that for public consultation with stakeholders. And with that, PN also basically look into what matters in terms of system, electricity, security, sustainability, financial sustainability, fiscal sustainability, and of course environmental sustainability. So PLN as an operator, as a utility, also has considerations in developing our own scenario and has already delivered our feedback to the JETP Secretariat of the, what we call it, the CIP, the CIPP, or the scenario developed by the JETP Secretariat. So I think the next phase after we have done our planning stage and the scenario assessment, then we need to look into what basically scenario that is executable, workable from PLN perspective in terms of the energy security, fiscal sustainability, financial sustainability, corporate financial sustainability, and environmental sustainability. And we have assessed 4 scenarios, and basically in conclusion, we have achieved to the conclusions that we are choosing the optimum scenario is the accelerated renewable energy with coal phase down. What does it mean? It's basically we have 75% additional renewable energy and 25% with the gas as a transition for enabling us to do this decarbonization roadmap. And the other issue that is also very important here is the number 4, that with that scenario, basically PLN power system emissions for the CO2 is basically below 370. So by 2030, if we are able to execute that plan, so basically it's already beyond the enhanced, already below the enhanced NDC. So that's also quite a good point in terms of planning, scenario planning. And what we see with the scenario of accelerated renewable energy is that we are operating within the covenants, within that covenants, debt service coverage ratio, debt to EBITDA, and also debt capacity. And we see that the fiscal exposure to that scenario is also something quite moderate, that we think that's the fiscal capacity is also being able to absorb that. So basically that's the situation at this moment, Pak Rahmat. In short, I think PLN has already put an effort to find the right scenario that we think meet those 4 aspects of energy security, sustainability, corporate financial sustainability, environmental sustainability, as well as the fiscal sustainability. So we have quite a lot of sets of slides for everyone. Then if you want to deep dive on that very specific aspect. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Cynthia. So PLN has done a lot of work, have a lot of menu, if you will, depending what is the support needed, as Pak Febrio mentioned. Once we do, there will be some impacts, and also who can support us pay for the bill, if you will. Okay, after this, apparently we have one online guest, online panelist from the MEMR. I would like to introduce you to Pak Katro Romandi from MEMR. And maybe also, Pak Katro, are you online?
Yeah, Pak Deputy.
Thank you, Pak Katro. So we have a lot of guests here, and I think we want to discuss on the energy transition, and especially on the energy transition mechanism, which practically require coal-fired power plant early retirement roadmap. So we understand that MEMR is currently drafting a ministerial decree on the CFPP early retirement roadmap, and also the project assignment, as in accordance with the Presidential Decree number 112 in 2022. So can you give us update on what is the progress on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Deputy. Yang kami hormati Pak Febrio, Chairman Office of Komplek, Minister of Finance, and Pak Diono, Assistant Minister for Macroeconomic and International Finance, and Ibu Cynthia Rusdi, Pak Paul Buta, and especially Pak Moderator, Pak Direktur Kirang Kemri. Sebelumnya Pak Yudo and Pak Diki could not attend directly, Pak, because we all are now at Bali for ASEAN Energy Business Forum, and also me myself also now attending for this energy business forum. So this is what we've been asked by Pak Moderator, Pak Deputy. We do have some slides probably that the organizer can show the latest slide number 4 probably. So with the coordination among stakeholders, with Minister of State-Owned, Minister of Finance, and PLN, UNOPS, ISR, and also ITB, we continue to intensify the so-called pilot transition to growth energy transition market mechanism viability. And again, we identify some research to achieve the target for the coal-fired power plant on the roadmap, actually, we identify based on the capacity of the coal-fired power plant belongs to PLN, belongs to IPP, and belongs to captive. But at the moment, can you show the slide number 4? Yeah, there's one update for the JFPP with chemical captive power plant. So, next. Yeah. Slide number 4. Yeah, thank you. So we identify the capacity belongs to PLN, IPP, and captive, but still at the moment we only have the data based on PLN data of the coal-fired power plant. And we also considered about the lifetime and capacity factor. How can any the gas productions if we terminate or if we close down or phasing down the coal-fired power plant, and what would be the economic value if we retire this more accelerated. And based on the input coming from the Minister of Finance, especially, and also Minister of Finance and also Minister of State, on that if we try to retire, we have to consider about the PP of tenaga listrik. So we have to consider about the subsidy and the compensation, and also we have to consider about the just transition of the aspect rate of if we retire for this 15 unit of identified coal-fired power plant. So we still have at the moment, Pak, we're still drafting, and we will have 2 ministerial decree. The first decree related on the roadmap itself, and the first ministerial decree will be on the list of the coal-fired power plant, which is also being agreed. If the list is being agreed by the Minister of Finance and also Minister of State. I will stop here, Pak. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. And I think on the energy transition, we have here the Deputy Head of JETP Secretariat, Pak Paul. And you know, there is a lot of discussion just now mentioning about JETP, Pak Paul. Can you update us, what is the process of financing on the energy transition in Indonesia, and what are the targets set by JETP? Give us update on the JETP.
Thank you, Pak Moderator, Pak Deputy. Good morning, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pak Kaban, Pak Febrio, dan Bapak Ibu panelis dan juga Bapak Ibu yang hadir di tempat ini. As everybody knows, the JETP has been announced in November, and Secretariat has been working since February this year under the guidance of 3 ministries actually, led by Pak Rahmat from Menko Marves, then led also by Pak Febrio from Finance Minister, and also Pak Dadan from MEMR. JETP Secretariat has been working together with a lot of partners with working group. Some of them actually are here. We have World Bank here, we have UNDP, I see here colleague, and other parties, including the civil society from Indonesia, working together to prepare a kind of a credible scenario pathway for the just energy transition for Indonesia. And then as a result, or the initial target of the JETP as announced during the G20 last year, it was said we need to meet 290 million ton of CO2 from power sectors after the evaluation by technical teams led by IEA, we found out that it would be doable, but it would be it would require a substantial amount of money, substantial effort from everybody, then make it almost impossible to implement. That's why the working group has been the technical working group has been working together to and getting the data from AMR, from PLN, and from captive power, and trying to see what would be the credible scenario for Indonesia energy transition. As promised, we have finalized from the Secretariat, have finalized the comprehensive investment policy and plan, policy plan, and then has been submitted to government and also IPG, and now is under discussion by government as well as IPG, and we expect to receive feedback so that we can later on respond to that feedback. If you can go to the last slide, please. So on the scenario that we have, as you may know that we have actually 5 investment plan. So five investment area. The first investment area will be in transmission and grid. The second one will be in coal phase out. And the third one will be investment in dispatchable renewable energy, and fourth investment area will be on variable, and the last one will be on the supply chains for the renewable energy technology. Based on the scenario that we have prepared together with the working group, we see actually the target could be reached to 395 million ton of CO2 in the power sector, but it also will still need a lot of effort. There are preconditions that need to be met. For example, we need to invest in a lot of geothermal, a lot of renewable, a lot of hydro, in particular also a lot of variable renewable, more than 20 gigawatt of solar PV and so on. And then this will require collaboration from everyone in order to make it happen. There are still a lot of issues there that need to be looked at in detail in order to make it happen. And in particular, actually, this issue, the financing, we could only do that if we can get financing. For example, in the scenario that we have now for the JETP, it said that we would need to phase out about 6 point something gigawatt of coal power plant in order to make room for renewable. And also we have to phase down by reducing the capacity factor in order to make more room for renewable. And all of that will need financing. So as already mentioned by Pak Febrio, by Pak Rahmat, by Pak Barjonen, as well as by Bu Cynthia, all of this will need money. So Bu Cynthia has already mentioned about projects that they will include in the PLN ultra accelerated and accelerated scenario, and only if sufficient financing would be available, then we could really make it happen. If not, then we need to, maybe we have to go with our own scenario that we would not meet the target of 2030, but we could move for example, with other target years that need to recalculate later on. But important is, as mentioned by Pak Febri before, there is a commitment for 20 billion to be mobilized by IPG member and GFANS, and we have checked what would be the, let's say, where the 20 billion could be invested. So if we want to move forward, for example, we need really a lot of investment in transmission, connecting Sumatra and Java, for example, or connecting, let's say, areas in Sulawesi, so that the renewable energy can be evacuated to meet the demand of the captive. we might want to think even to utilize the renewable energy potential in Papua so that we could, let's say, evacuate that to the smelters in Halmahera or in Obi Island in order to reduce the need for coal captive in that area for smelters and so on. And these need investment. And also, as can be seen in the slide here, we expect that the public money, the 20 billion, consists of 10 billion of public money and 10 billion from commercial. We expect that most of the financing from the public sector could be used to finance grid or transmission and also early retirement, because we expect that this funding or because this investment would not have sufficient return. That's why it would not fit for commercial. But the other, for example, the variable renewable or some of the dispatchable renewable could go for commercial financing and so on. And I think I will stop here, Pak. Makasih.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Paul. I think you see there's projects already identified in JP, and also there's a lot of work on the roadmap, if you will. So thank you, Pak. So maybe I just want to pick up a little bit on your comments on the financing package, because people typically say that there's a lot of money in the world, right? Whether it's suitable to support the financing or not, and specifically on the ETM and especially also in the infrastructure, do you see that there is enough money available that and also suitable in terms of tenure, in terms of concessionality to support the projects?
Unfortunately, out of the I would only talk about the public money, but out of the 10 billion money that has been promised, only few of them is really allocated for let's say transmission or early retirement. So to date, as of now, the only funding that is available for early retirement is actually the one for ETM. So not much, let's say, if Pak Katro, for example, mentioned about 4.8 gigawatt to be retired, then other than the ETM money, we don't have any money left actually. Also, we call it just transition. So we expect actually that the financing of just part of the energy transition, we expect that should be a grant. But so far, we only see that less than 300 million would be used as a grant, will get as a grant, and about half of them has been allocated for technical assistance. So all in all, we see that the financing available for moving forward with this just energy transition would not be sufficient. It requires a lot more concessional funding in order to be able to move forward with the scenario. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you, Pak Paul. So a lot of good work being done, but of course a lot of homework moving forward as well. Okay, just I'm conscious on my original schedule, 10:15, we have to finish. So maybe before I close, I would like to ask our panelists here, each one to, because we have all these prominent members, maybe if there is something that you want to tell them, Pak Pargiono, to the audience, please. Any messages?
Yeah, thank you. Just to highlight, Pak Febrio mentioned the cost is very expensive and the government is not able to bear all the costs, and certainly the private sector involvement, engagement to this process investment is needed. And I see here most of us, the private sector actually have a high interest to this investment, and we are really guided by yours in terms of how we can create the corridor, the framework and regulatory framework that the private sector can be, definitely come to this process, to this energy transition mechanism. And I see also in the global move from the G20, for example, the intention to reform the MDBs, for example, that to expand the mission is not only to the prosperity and also to poverty, but also to global public goods. But then we questioning on the financings that really no one can answer up to now, even though already hire expert groups, but we can put the number, but we haven't been able to put the way to go with this number in a more concrete way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bu Cynthia.
Yeah, I think I can say that Indonesia has, we have already started exercising the scenario, and at least we have the initial numbers of the projects already, whether it's the investment focus area in the generations or transmission distribution, including the smart grid. And the level of $150 billion is something that is now on the table, and hundreds of projects. I think yesterday around 950 projects lists are there, and for the priority projects is around 450 projects. So for lenders and for anyone, the partners in financing can also start looking into the projects, because sooner or later we need to develop the renewable energy, base load, variable renewable energy, or green enabling infrastructure, the transmission and smart grid. So there are a very vast areas of investment that can be supported by everyone. So we are ready for that, and please start discussing with us, because numbers will, of course, will be dynamics, but the needs for the investments are there. And of course for PLN, again, so long as the assistance and the help extended by the global communities to PLN as a corporate needs to be sound, needs to be competitive, and of course we also expect some sort of accelerated in terms of the process of the extended financing facility to PLN, so that we start working on one by one of the projects. For the early terminations, I think we are now working on it on the private sector side in terms of PPA. Of course, consents from PLN needs to be there. We just need to look into how it would fit into the system and how the clause in the PPA enable us to do so. I think this should not be an issue. So we are working on it. On PLN own, it has to be also discussed a bit on the execution in terms of the support from the government, in terms of the stability of the system, etc. So more on the technical. So I think all in all, in the investment plan are there. On the early retirements, we are also working on it. We are quite optimistic that Indonesia is serious and PLN is also serious in this endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If Pak Katro still with us, Pak Katro, any message for the audience?
Thank you, Pak Moderator. If I may, Pak, the key challenge, and also mentioned by Pak Febio earlier on the opening, is the involvement of the stakeholders, Pak. So how is the flexibility mechanism to ensure the energy transition mechanism exist in the country? So investment is surely needed, and it needs a strong collaboration and among international partners, Pak, government, stakeholders, and its value chain. And I would like also to deliver the high appreciation, Pak, for the Minister of Finance, Pak, for convening this valuable meeting. And we all actually looking for the output and outcome for sustainable finance, Pak, existence. So global participation and collaboration is necessary, Pak, to achieve carbon neutrality in power sector. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you, Pak Katro. And Pak Paul.
One thing that I take note from what we have done so far as part of in the preparation of the CIPP document is actually the collaboration. So it's really nice to see that under the guidance of the government, Pak Rahmat, Pak Febrio, and Pak Dadan, and also collaborating with all of the stakeholders, PLN and DJK, Pak Katro teams and so on, and also including, of course, the international organization that have supported us in preparing all of the document. This nice collaboration has been able to put up a plan. It is not perfect. It is not perfect, but at least we have a plan that we can, let's say, good as a basis for us to discuss. That will help us in meeting our target, our JETP target, and also meeting our net zero emissions. And then next for us at the Secretariat will be waiting for the guidance from the government and also IPG, so that after that we can get the documents for public comments, so that all the efforts that we have spent, that everybody have spent for this document could be materialized later on. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you, Pak Paul. So to summarize, basically it seems like there's a lot of commitment and a lot of good work has been done by the Indonesian government and with PLN, also together with JETP Secretariat and the working groups, that is basically collaboration with a lot of international organizations as well. Policies are being created, platforms being created. But of course, it seems to me it's a very, very complex challenge. Indonesia is very complex. It's a growing country, still middle income. And of course, with the geography, is also facing very unique problems. So bear with us, but we of course need to be keep in high spirit, because this is very, very important for all of us. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to moderate the session, Pak Febrio and everyone, and let me give back to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rahmat Kaimuddin, and also all speakers, panelists for the insightful discussions for the first session of this seminar today. And ladies and gentlemen, before we go to the second sessions, I would like to inform you that we have already provided some meals and beverage outside the ballroom, so you may have enjoy the meals and beverage while we continue our session. Again, thank you for the panelists, and we would like to continue to our second sessions. Country update on energy transition mechanism. Ladies and gentlemen, and these second sessions will explain the study of CFPP to be retired earlier in Indonesia and update other countries' progress. And absolutely, this session will be guided by our honorable moderator, Mr. Nur Syaifuddin, Senior Policy Analyst, Fiscal Policy Agency, Ministry of Finance of Republic of Indonesia. And all ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Nur Syaifuddin.
Thank you for Master Ceremony for inviting me to moderate the second session, and I'll take the lecturers as a moderator for the second moderator, just like Pak Rahmat already take the first moderator lecturers. For the second moderator, I will take it much easier because the context already delivered by Pak Febrio, and all the strategic policies and etc. already been discussed clearly on the first session. So then in the second session, just like the Master of Ceremony already delivered, that we will talk and discuss about the study on the CFPP early retirement particularly in Indonesia and Philippines. And without further ado, I will invite our first speaker, Pak Edwin Syahruzad, as the CEO of PT Sarana Multi Infrastructure in Indonesia. Welcome, Pak. And from virtual, we will have Pak David Elzinga from ASEAN Development Bank. Please welcome, Pak. And we will also have our third panelist, Mr. Michael Osinakros. Welcome, Pak Michael. So, I'm very delighted this morning because in this seminar on the second session on the study of the CFPP early retirement, we have three prominent speakers that they are very keen in the process of the CFPP early retirement, particularly Pak Edwin as the CEO of PT SMI of Indonesia, that been done with a couple of initiatives related with the energy transition mechanism in Indonesia from the as the country platform manager, and we also have Pak David, who have been done with study in the Cirebon coal-fired power plant, and we also have Pak Michael that been studying on the and preparing the policy on the energy transition mechanism in the Philippines, and we'll be hearing further, from our three prominent speakers about each of the particular topics. And for Pak Edwin, I think you already prepared with some presentation, Pak, about how the advanced updates on the process of the early retirement in the Pelabuhan Ratu coal-fired power plant, Pak, and perhaps you can also share any challenges as well as the next steps that been preparing by PT SMI. Please, without further ado, Pak. Thank you, Pak.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to be part of the panelists in the very important session. I think as a country platform, I think we are involved in the two showcases. First, I think is also we are involved in the showcase, which is coal phasing out of Pelabuhan Ratu project, whereas we have formed a consortium with PTBA. It is, like Bu Cynthia mentioned before, it is the asset spin-off modality, whereby on the other IPP modality, we are also supporting, and we work hand in hand with INA to support the coal phase out of Cirebon project. I think with regard to the Pelabuhan Ratu project, as I mentioned before, this is the power plant that is quite critical because it is the source of base load modality for PLN, and it is located in Java, and the size is quite big, as the capacity is 3 times 330 megawatt, and also commercial operation has been commenced in 2014, and I think the estimated book value is quite big, is an approximate number of 12 trillion rupiah. And I think this is the first constraint. There is no way we can have a transaction below estimated book value because it will bring PLN to the risk of state losses. And I think from technical standpoint, it is main source of electricity production to Java, since it produces an approximate number of 5,500 gigawatt hour per year in 2021. Yeah. I think we structure the transaction in such way there is an equity portion where we collaboratively with PTBA and PLN would be the shareholders. So PLN will receive money from that part. The indicative equity is approximately 30%, representing the project cost, or 4.13 trillion rupiah, and also we hope that we can get collaborative financing, yeah, to the project in a number of close to 10 trillion, which is primarily, I think that we can have a concessional support from the government. Of course, we need also to collaboratively close a financing mechanism whereby it represents a blended finance from as many as possible commercial financier or commercial lenders that would be attracted to these projects. Next, I think, of course, the modalities start with the spinning off of this asset, because this is the asset already in the balance sheet of PLN, so there might be some sale of asset to SPV initially owned by PLN, and in the second stage or in the later stage, we are going to conduct a sale and purchase agreement to acquire some shares of SPV, 100% owned by PLN. And of course, there is an element of early retirement or phase out period, which according to the model, we have appointed consultant KPMG in this particular case, and they have built a building block, not really a financial model that is based on reality, but a building block based on assumption here and there. And we expect to get 8 years curtailing the lifetime of the initial production, yeah, or lifetime of the assets, so that we can have some quite, this is IRR that is reflecting more towards, I think, impact investor rather than a commercial investors. And I think next, with regard to the process, currently we are, as I mentioned before, we have formed a consortium between the three of us, and we are working on it. We are in the stage of due diligence at the moment. The consultant has been appointed, but there is also critical issues. Yeah, I think we have pointed out several critical issues that needs to be following up. Yeah, because it is not under our control, but it is under perhaps there is some element of critical issues under PLN control, and PLN need a revision with regard to the PP or regulation that stipulates the direct appointment to the SPV from the asset previously owned by PLN, because it is the SPV that is going to have a contractual agreement with regard to the PPA and the terms and condition of electricity production, and terms and condition with regard to the technicalities, and of course the return, yeah, because return is very important, and also return to the investors as well as the financing support to the project. Next slide, perhaps. This is some of critical issues that needs to be resolved quite soon. I think some of it, is with regard to the direct assignment, direct appointment, and the other perhaps also with regard to the, I think even though in the previous session that it's been mentioned about the mechanic of the country platform, but we still need also the Pemkab, Ministry of Finance regulation to stipulate, to enable us to perform a role as a country platform, and what is really the mechanism, the protocol that needs to be conducted in such way we can also propose for this particular case, we can propose the request for a government support. I think I stop here and I come back to moderator, please.
Thank you, Pak Edwin, for very comprehensive explanation on the current situation or current situation on the providing or process to the early retirement for the Pelabuhan Ratu. I will have a couple of further following up discussion, Pak. But first, I will invite our second speaker first, Pak. Pak David Elzinga. Are you there, Pak? So, Pak David is the ADB's senior analyst for climate change energy specialist, and it's been done from his experience, for more than 20 years experience in dealing and conducting a couple of studies on the climate and energies with different institutions and organizations. So, Pak David, perhaps you can explain further about the current result of your study regarding the Cirebon coal-fired power plant, Pak. As yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, that according to the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, there are 2 coal-fired power plants that are expected to be early retired in the table, Pak. So please, Pak. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, and I very much appreciate the invitation to this event, and I'm sorry that I can't be there in person, but very happy to participate virtually in this very important event. If I could ask that the organizers put up the presentation, and maybe starting with slide number 3. And just while they organize the presentation, I'll just highlight that we have heard from many speakers on the complexity of the energy transition, and there are many moving parts as the country develops their energy system and their power system. Yes, that was the correct slide. Please display that. As the country grows and develops their energy system in a way that is needing to support the economy and the society in general with energy to develop from a socioeconomic aspect. If you could display the presentation, please, with slide 3. So before I talk specifically about Cirebon, I just wanted to highlight the broad range of activities and just try to put them in context in Indonesia. So, of course, we have heard a number of people speak about the JETP, the Just Energy Transition Partnership, and I'll just highlight here that we see a number of different initiatives numbered 1 through 5 at the top of the slide. Number 2 is one element, which is the early coal-fired power plant retirement. But we have, sorry, could you, yeah, thank you. We see that numbers 1, 3, 4, and 5 have a range of development of different areas in the power sector, as well as developing the value chain for energy technologies in Indonesia that can provide additional economic value. And I think it's really important to look at this holistically to see the need for transmission and distribution, baseload RE as well as variable RE to really meet that cost as well as energy security aspects for the development of the power sector. So really, the just energy transition is about not only decreasing emissions, but providing more power to meet those socioeconomic needs. And when we look at going down to the bottom of the slide, the work on energy transition by ADB has a number of activities that can support this energy transition in Indonesia. So we're looking at a results-based lending opportunity with PLN. This can support a number of both deployment of renewables as well as supporting the accelerated retirement of coal-fired power plants. We're looking at a financial intermediary loan with PTSMI that could support Pelabuhan Ratu project. Of course, the Cirebon transaction, which I'll speak in more detail in a minute. A prime step project which involves education around energy, clean energy system development. Those are four projects that are found under the Climate Investment Fund's Accelerating Coal Transition window that we have partnered with the World Bank to support Indonesia in their application for this amount of 500 million in concessional funding. So this fits underneath this particular work fits underneath and can be seen as JETP initiatives under specific projects that support that broader strategy that is being developed under the JETP. In addition to that, we are working on a standalone financing on a policy-based loan, which would provide fiscal support to Indonesia that will support some of those policy developments that are happening, and some of those were mentioned by ASDM earlier in terms of the coal accelerated coal retirement roadmap. And then lastly, a range of different technical assistance, including our feasibility study that can really support the analytical work on a range of different areas in the energy sector development, as well as carbon finance, environmental and social aspects, and as well, lastly, I'll simply highlight the ASEAN transition taxonomy, in addition to other areas that are really important for this broader energy transition work in Indonesia. Next slide, please. I'll highlight that in the context of ASEAN, we are also doing work on these topics more broadly in Southeast Asia, but also other countries are starting to investigate and look at how can they develop plans and strategies and specific projects that can support the energy transition in their own country. And just highlighting a number of aspects and how we're supporting this, we're working on a ETM funding vehicle that could support transactions in a range of countries in the region and the Southeast Asia region and beyond. We've been able to bring some concessional funding into a trust fund within ADB that allows us to support these activities. We're working on using Indonesia as a model for some initial carbon methodology and also supporting the ASEAN taxonomy work. So really looking at some structural market-based approaches that can support energy transition. And then the last two topics specifically on just transition, as well as safeguards, and the safeguards including both environmental and social aspects. So that links to the just transition side. So very much making sure that the environment as well as the people and communities are supported in going forward with the energy transition. If I can get you to go to the next slide and then forward one more, where I would like to, yes, next slide, perfect. Thank you. Just now talk specifically about the Cirebon transaction. And this is a rather complex slide, and I want to highlight just a couple points. For one, both INA as well as ADB at this point are looking at providing funding to support this Cirebon transaction. ADB would be providing funds on a debt basis, and INA, with the support of PTSMI, as mentioned earlier, would be providing equity funds. What this allows us to do in the transaction is use both debt to relever the project, and by relevering the project, shifting some of those expected equity returns by the owners of the plant into low-cost debt, we can actually use that approach to shorten the life of the project. And then the equity portion provides a different role. What it allows is those who want to exit the transaction can do so. But I think it's very important to note that INA, together with PTSMI, are not investing in equity in a coal plant alone. They're investing in a coal plant that is doing an accelerated retirement. I think that's a very important element to highlight, that these transactions working together with both debt and equity can very much provide significant value to all stakeholders, those who want to continue in the coal plant operation while it accelerates its retirement, and those who want to exit. This really provides a complete package for this type of transaction. I also want to just highlight that, of course, PLN is a key stakeholder in this, and one of the challenges with this project in that PLN has a supplier of power through Cirebon that is contracted to 2042. In this context, with the ETM transaction, now this plant will cease to produce electricity much earlier than planned. So PLN is a very essential stakeholder in this discussion, because now they have to understand, okay, where is that power going to come from in 2037 up to 2042? We knew the source of the power and we knew the price of the power during that period. What is the replacement power going to be? And no matter how much analysis we do over to determine this, we're not exactly going to have full certainty in the future. The power may be less expensive in the future than this coal plant would provide. That would be an upside for PLN and those buying power from PLN. But the power could be also more expensive. Therefore, who's going to pay for that? And that question has come up earlier as well. So we're dealing with some level of uncertainty as to the future impacts of this transaction. And we have to work to manage that through these broader energy transition activities that I highlighted earlier. If we can go to the next slide, and this will be my last slide. Just to provide you quite a specific update on this transaction, we're still working on this with the range of stakeholders. One of the key aspects that we're working on is the launch of the environmental and social audit and an initial just transition assessment. So this is very much working to determine how we can manage any of the environmental and social impacts of ETM. Overall, this can be a very positive transaction, but if there are impacts, how do we mitigate them? And we're currently studying this to determine how to do that. We're currently working with the commercial partners on this to understand the ETM versus business as usual costs, and therefore that will allow us to structure the financial aspect. We're launching the PLN grid study to address that issue on what is the impacts of the early retirement on system planning. And this is, as I said, quite introduces some uncertainty because the timing of the retirement is beyond the RUPTL planning period, and we also can't know for certain what the future looks like with respect to technology costs and technology capabilities. So this is a challenge to really make a plan today that is going to have a long-term impact on the future. And then also a range of interministerial discussions to make sure that there is an enabling environment, especially for PLN to pursue such a transaction. And that is one of the key aspects that we're working on at this stage. So with that, I want to conclude and happy to answer any questions and looking forward to participate in the discussion following the other presenter. Thank you. Back to you, Pa.
Thank you very much, Pak David, for your very comprehensive explanation on starting from the bigger picture of the ETM and other just transition mechanism that's been doing in the particularly for Indonesia, and you also explain about the current status of your study and perhaps next steps to achieve some objective of the energy transition mechanism, particularly for Cirebon coal-fired power plant. And yes, Pak, for sure we will invite any questions or perhaps highlights from participants. But first, I'd like to invite Pak Michael from the Philippines. That he is the one that preparing the among others, the energy planning and policies in the Philippines. And I'd like to invite Michael Sinacros from the Philippines to share his thought in this regard. Thank you, please.
Okay, thank you and good morning to everyone. And I'd like to thank the organizer for inviting me here to be part of this event, although I'm joining online because I'm here in Bali attending the ASEAN Ministers meeting. Let me just share my presentation.
Yeah, we have to wait a minute, Pak, for the presentation, Pak. Or maybe you can go on with your explanation, Pak, maybe.
Sorry for a while.
Okay, Pak Michael, maybe you can unmute, Pak. We cannot hear you, Pak. Please, Pak.
Okay, can you see my presentation? Huh?
Okay, so Tim, please. No.
Not yet.
Not yet, yeah, Pak. Well, maybe you can. Yeah, Okay. Can you share? You can start share, Pak.
Can you now see my presentation?
Not yet, Pak.
Okay. I don't know how to.
Or maybe you can restart your Teams, Pak, and then you can share the screen then.
Now see my presentation? No, not yet.
Yes, not yet,
Not
Pak.
yet?
Not yet, Pak.
It's not working on your phone.
Oh yeah. Oh, otherwise, you need to like restart your computer or something, Pak. Masih enggak jelas posisinya, ya? Okay. Okay. So once Pak Michael still preparing his computer, I'd like to maybe highlight some point from either Pak Edwin and Pak David from their previous presentation that from Pak Edwin, at least you need a more mandate, Pak, ya, with regard to the Minister of Finance decree, as providing some fiscal incentives to your portion as the ATM country platform, Pak. And so far, we know that this PMK, this minister decree is ongoing, and we may expect that it can be enacted by Bu Menteri maybe in the near future, Pak. So then, if I may note that according to your calculation, Pak, the IR, potential IR will be 8.5%, and there is no increase in terms of tariff, Pak. So would it be preferable, Pak, for the investor with your finding, Pak, and maybe with your country platform manager position right now, is there any like fiscal incentive or fiscal facilitation that can be you need to be done to support your position, Pak? And for Pak David, we know that in here we also have our colleagues from World Bank. They also doing some just transition study, Pak, and with like very much happier, yeah, if our colleague from World Bank also can join with us in the discussion. So far, Pak, if we may refer to your current study, Pak, in terms of because the just transition will be conducted in the asset level. So so far, any findings that from the community surrounding the Cirebon that been aware about the potential impact of the Cirebon 1 early retirement in the near future, Pak. Then I think that from me, as the follow-up question, both for Pak Edwin and Pak David, while we are waiting for Pak Michael to be prepared, Pak. Please, Pak, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. I think we are in the journey to develop transition asset class, and it is a complex asset class to me, and one of the narrative is coal phase out because of Indonesia's situation right now. And from my understanding about the coal phase out itself, and our fact finding to the constraint that limits us as new investors, new impact investors, to this journey. I think it requires lower cost of capital, whether it is equity and financing, and how can we fairly sharing the burden, as Pak Febrio mentioned and Pak Rahmat also mentioned in previous section. I think for us, first of all, as a SMV, Special Mission Vehicle of the Ministry of Finance, we are frequently assigned by MOF to act on behalf of MOF in conducting transaction that is having a big impact but not commercially viable. So I think that's why government support is part of the blended element that enable us to perform, and to collect and collaborate, and at the end of the day, provide the project with lower cost of capital, which is in a particular case, lower cost of debt. I think for that reason, I think we can start exploring and replicate, for another transition asset class. And of course, we also expect that the support not only coming from the government, but of course from other stakeholders, and it also can create the flow of concessional finance to the country. I think that's from my standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Edwin. So I'd like to invite Pak David, Pak, please, Pak.
So yeah, just briefly, and I see Director Sinacruz's presentation is up, and so I'll be brief so we can hear from him. I'll just highlight that from a financial point of view, that we are using a traditional finance approach, which is re-leveraging the investment, but also combining that with concessional capital, that we can really maximize the retirement of the coal-fired power plant. So it's really trying to do something that is innovative, together with using traditional approaches and concessional financing for this first transaction. But also, if we can later use this to demonstrate the emission reductions, we could use carbon credits or produce carbon credits that can be monetized, and that could minimize the need for concessional finance. So it's, I think, very exciting to use concessional funds at this stage, and then later using a market-based mechanism, using the taxonomy to allow for these investments, as well as the carbon finance methodology to bring in other market-based approaches. So we're really excited about that. And then on the just transition, this is a challenging aspect because we're trying to design for to mitigate the just transition impacts at the end of life for this coal-fired power plant, which is estimated under the transaction at around 2037. What I see as a real exciting opportunity within Indonesia, as a country that has significant mineral resources, wants to develop a clean energy economy. So in battery production as well as other clean energy technologies. This provides that opportunity to shift employment, which is one key element of just transition, from, say, working at a coal plant to then being employed in clean energy technology production. So I think that ambition as part of Indonesia's broader plans really supports energy transition very well. Let me stop there and pass it back to the moderator.
Thank you, Pak David. So since Pak Michael's ready, so please, Pak, you can start your presentation, Pak.
Okay, thank you, and good morning to everyone again, and apologies for the technical problems. Let me start my presentation. So my presentation will cover 3 parts. I'll be discussing first the energy situation of the country, the energy plan, which is our action plan or the roadmap for the energy transition, and lastly on the ETN. Next slide. Next. Okay. So currently, if our total primary energy supply, as you can see here, that we are highly dependent on fossil fuel. So it's about 67% of our primary energy supply. And among the fossil fuels, we are highly dependent on coal and oil. And RE only contributed around 33 or 34% of our primary energy supply. Next slide, please. Next. Okay. When it comes to total final energy consumption, the major users of our energy are the households and transport. About 60% or more than 60% of our final energy consumption was consumed by these 2 sectors. And the right hand or the pie chart on the right is by fuel. So we are heavily dependent on oil, about 50%, specifically for the transport. Next. So let me now go to the power generation. As you can see here, that our power generation, we are highly dependent on coal. So it poses a challenge for us because about 60% of our power generation in 2022 was contributed by coal. While renewable energy, although the aggregate capacity of renewable energy contributed 29% of our total capacity, but in terms of generation, the share of RE in 2022 was only 22%, while we also have a significant share from gas, about 16% of our power generation. So let me now go to the Philippine Energy Plan. So we are currently, our current plan right now covers the period 2020 to 2040. And these are the targets that we set for this plan. We are aiming for the increase in RE share to 35% by 2040 and by 35% by 2030 rather, and increasing further to 50% by 2040. We are also looking at the penetration or the accelerated implementation of our energy efficiency and conservation programs that will realize energy savings. And we also looking at the penetration of electric vehicle, although we're going to revise the target since we do have the comprehensive EV roadmap right now in place, and the application of technological or information and communication technology, and lastly on energy resiliency, climate proofing of energy ecosystem. Next. So as I mentioned, we are currently updating the plan, and we are going to set a much ambitious target. So our reference will be the 50% of RE share by 2040 up to 2050 in high RE with low OSW. We are targeting that the RE share will increase to at least 60% of our power generation by 2050. So there will be coal retirements. So those that will be retired are these plants are those inefficient plants with high incidence of outages, as well as already reached the economic and technical life. So there's another one, and aside from the coal retirement, we are also looking at the development of nuclear energy under this scenario. Under the clean energy scenario too, wherein we're going to have a higher penetration from offshore wind, and we are looking at the development of about 50 gigawatt of offshore wind, because there was a study conducted by World Bank that the Philippines has a huge potential for offshore wind, about 178 gigawatts. So we have issued several contracts on this, and because we open the RE industry to 100% foreign ownership. So there are now, I think, 3 service contracts with 100% foreign owned company. Next slide, please. So let me now go to the previous slide. So let me now go to the energy transition mechanism. So in line with the Philippine Transition Initiative, so we are now taking advantage of the opportunities to implement various programs and projects that are geared towards consumer protection, use of new, emerging, and more efficient energy technologies, the development and utilization of RE and other clean energy sources. And to keep up with the current trend, the Philippine government, through the Department of Energy, has been collaborating with the various development partners, the international organization, including through the energy transition mechanism. Next, please. So this is the ETM, the indicative timeline for the ETM. The ETM has been developed to leverage market-based approaches to accelerate transition from fossil to clean energy. And in October of 2021, the Philippines was selected to develop an investment plan for the accelerating coal transition program of the climate investment funds under the ADB. And the main objective of the ACT program is to tackle key barriers related to governance, people, and infrastructure, as well as to address funding gaps leading to the successful implementation of country-level strategies associated with the Kickstart projects, to include even building support at the local and regional levels within the country, as well as to accelerate the retirement of existing coal assets. The 2 CIF ICT investment plan, this is the Multilateral Development Bank's missions, were conducted in partnership with our Department of Finance and my department, the Department of Energy, in August of last year and in March of this year, purposely to plan and prepare for the investment plan for the access of this fund on the accelerated coal transition. The CIF for Clean Technology or fund committee reviewed the Philippines proposal for a 6-month extension on the submission of country's investment plan. So the request was approved last June of this year, and the Philippines investment plan shall be submitted to CIF by November of this year. Next. So last August 4 of this year, the ADB, together with the Department of Energy, World Bank, and the International Finance Corporation, held the first stakeholders engagement meeting for the Philippine CIF ACT investment plan. And we received more than 120 representatives from the Philippine government, NGOs, civil society, among others, private sector. And as a follow-up activity is to conduct in October a workshop to finalize the investment plan to be submitted, as I mentioned earlier, in November of this year. And I think that's it for the ETM. And I'd like to emphasize here that when we discuss this ETM with ADB, we are proposing that we should also look at the repurposing of coal power plants, not just only retirement, as well as looking at the impacts to the workers. We need to be included in the investment plan should be the upskilling, reskilling, upskilling of the workers to be affected when we're going to close down the coal mines, retire or repurpose some of our coal power plants. Not only the workers, but even the micro enterprises hosting the facilities, both the coal power plants and the mining areas. With that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Michael, for presentation on the ETM and energy policy planning in the Philippines. Because of the time constraint, so actually I would like to invite maybe participant to also raise some question, but maybe I have to finish the session a bit because of the time constraint. And if I may to sum up of the presentation from the three speakers. So from the Indonesia, I mean from the Pelabuhan Ratu, we can say that the preparations towards the implementation of the TM based on the country platform manager perspective is that we need to find some fine-tune between the financial and market perspective and how the government may provide some support to that. And from the Cirebon, some further aspects it's in the place, including launching studies on the just transition and as well as the environment and social audit, as well as further discussion between the owner or the shareholders of the Cirebon with the relevant government institution. And from the Philippines, I think there are some steps moving forward, and we are expecting that in the future maybe some of the implementation of ETM both in the Indonesia as well as in the Philippines can be the best practices implementation of ETM in the world. I think I have to stop there due to the time constraint, and thank you very much for participants and for sure for the three prominent speakers for sharing in the today's seminar. And I will give it back time and place to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you.
Again, thank you for Mr. Nur Syaifuddin and also our honorable speakers for the insightful discussions. So, ladies and gentlemen, now we have discussed two subtopics about introductions and vulnerable of energy transition in Indonesia, and also that has been completely delivered by our speakers. And also we have discussed about the second topics, which is about country update energy transition mechanism from our speakers, Mr. Edwin as the President Director from PTSMI, and also Mr. David from ADB, and also the third speaker, Mr. Michael from Department of Energy Philippines. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we still have one last session of today's seminar. The last session is about road to just and affordable transitions. Ladies and gentlemen, this session will provide a venue for speakers to explain about green taxonomy in Indonesia, and also will highlight just transitions and strategic environment and social assessment on the implementations of energy transition mechanism. Absolutely. Before we start the third sessions, let me introduce our moderator, Ms. Pande Putu Oka Kusumawaradani. She is head of Center for State Revenue Policy, Fiscal Policy Agency of Ministry of Finance of Republic of Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Pande Putu Oka Kusumawardani.
Okay, still good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Now we have come to the third sessions of the today's seminar of energy transitions mechanisms, ASEAN country updates, road to just and affordable transitions. And my name is Pande Putu Kusumawardani, and I will be your moderator for this session. And in these sessions, we will have 4 prominent speakers who will share their valuable thought and also experiences. Our first speaker, Ms. Mutia Kairani, Senior Climate Finance Specialist from ASEAN Development Bank. Our second speaker would be Mr. Joko Triharyanto, President Director of the Indonesian Environment Fund. Our third speaker is Mr. Eugene Wong, apologize, a Monetary Authority of Singapore, Vice Chair of the ASEAN Taxonomy Board, who will join our today's event online. And we close our eyes to see. We close our eyes to see.
Of Indonesia, President Joko Widodo, Majesty and Excellencies, Asian leaders who are present this morning, Majesty, His Excellency Secretary General of ASEAN, Excellency of Asian Ministers, all international organization leaders, distinguished delegates and guests. Is it with great honors and delight that we welcome all of you to Indonesia and the inaugurations of the Asian Indo-Pacific Forum, implementations of the Asian's outlooks of Indo-Pacifics. Today we stand at a moment of opportunity, a moment of responsibility. We gather to construct a future that is more connected, more prosperous, and more sustainable for the Asian and Indo-Pacific regions. The Asian outlooks on the Indo-Pacific becomes a part of our efforts to strengthen regional cooperations and promote more sustainable development. As we assume that Asian chairman's this year, we are inspired by the Asian outlooks and the President Joko Widodo's leadership to make ASEAN a true epicentrum of the growth. and keep peace, security, stability, and also prosperity in the Indo-Pacific. It is the spirit that we are here today. This forum is a part of ASEAN chairmanship in 2023, serve as a platform for constructive dialogues and advance of inclusive and concrete collaborations between public, private, and state-owned enterprises. We will involve in leader talks, panel discussions, and business matching with a focus of 3 essential areas: green infrastructures and resilient supply chains, digital transformations and creative economy, as well as sustainable and innovative financings. In the face of complex global challenge, Indonesia government, through our state-owned enterprises, actively collaborate with global partners to address issues across various sectors. For example, by forming strategic alliance to build a battery value chain ecosystems, cooperating and expanding connectivity and digitalizations across the regions, and participating in regional infrastructure development. This example represents the transformative power of regional cooperative for the collective progress of the Asians and Indo-Pacific communities. This is our sincere hope. The discussion and the engagement in this forum will be inspire a new partnerships, strengthen existing relationships, and generate innovative solutions to the challenge we are facing today. Thank you for attention, and I extend my warmest wishes to productive and successful forum. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Your Majesty, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is only with the greatest pleasure and honor that we shall invite to the stage the President of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Joko Widodo, to deliver his remarks.
Sri Baginda, Yang mulia para pemimpin ASEAN, hadirin sekalian yang saya hormati. Kita patut bersyukur di tengah melemahnya ekonomi dunia, ekonomi ASEAN terbukti tangguh dan terus tumbuh melebihi pertumbuhan ekonomi global dan kawasan lainnya. Dengan populasi sebesar 680 juta jiwa, ASEAN juga merupakan pasar yang potensial dengan peluang investasi yang menjanjikan. Namun, kawasan kita tidak imun dari berbagai tantangan global dan rivalitas geopolitik yang menajam, khususnya potensi konflik di Indo-Pasifik. Untuk itu, ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum hadir untuk mengubah rivalitas di Indo-Pasifik menjadi kerjasama yang bermanfaat, serta membangun habit of cooperation yang win-win formula tanpa satupun merasa dikucilkan. ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum memiliki 3 agenda utama, yaitu pertama, infrastruktur hijau dan rantai pasok yang resilient. Ekonomi ASEAN akan tumbuh lebih kokoh melalui hilirisasi industri dan pembangunan ekosistem EV adalah contoh konkret membangun rantai pasok kawasan. Yang kedua, pembiayaan yang berkelanjutan dan inovatif. ASEAN membutuhkan 29,4 triliun US dollar untuk transisi energi dan dibutuhkan skema pembiayaan yang inovatif melalui kemitraan yang profitable dan sustainable. Yang ketiga, transformasi digital dan ekonomi kreatif. Ekonomi digital di ASEAN di tahun 2030 diperkirakan tumbuh hingga 1 triliun US dollar dan adopsi inovasi digital perlu diperkuat untuk mendukung ekonomi kreatif dan UMKM. Yang mulia, saya mengapresiasi dukungan dan kontribusi negara ASEAN dan mitra ASEAN sehingga telah terkumpul 93 proyek kerjasama senilai 38,2 miliar US dollar dan 73 proyek potensial senilai 17,8 miliar US dollar. Ini mencerminkan komitmen kita to walk the talk, membangun Indo-Pasifik yang damai, yang stabil, dan yang makmur. Semoga ikhtiar kita dapat memberikan manfaat yang besar bagi rakyat di kawasan dan dunia. Dan dengan ini saya nyatakan ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum resmi dibuka. Terima kasih.
And now allow us to invite to the stage all distinguished ASEAN members to join the President of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Joko Widodo, on stage for a group photo session. First, the formal pose. Allow us to do a countdown in 3, 2, 1. And our second photograph will be taken with the ASEAN Way handshake, right hand over the left. In 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much, Your Majesty and all excellencies, and the Presidents of the Republic of Indonesia and all ASEAN leaders. Kindly proceed to Ballroom 1 to explore the exhibition. We kindly welcome and invite the President of the Republic of Indonesia and all ASEAN leaders to explore the exhibition located in Ballroom 1. The exhibition showcases inclusive, innovative, groundbreaking, and collaborative ideas and projects that reflect the spirit of ASEAN as the epicentrum of growth. Ladies and gentlemen, as we've come to the end of our opening ceremony of the ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum, we'd like to kindly inform that all participants that our first plenary session on the subject of general outlook on the region will begin at 2:15 p.m. in this very ballroom. So we invite everyone to please join us on the first plenary discussion. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Excellencies, leaders of ASEAN member states, welcome to the ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum 2023 Showcase Area. The showcase tour will be led by Minister of State-Owned Enterprises of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Erick Thohir.
Mr. President, Your Majesty and Excellencies, welcome to IPF exhibitions. We are showcasing strategic projects for different sectors: green infrastructures, sustainable financing, digital transformations, and creative economy. We are also showing that Indonesia's state-owned enterprise are building concrete partnerships with global companies to build ecosystem to make ASEAN the epicenter of growth. Jadi Pak, ini semua kerjasama antara
Yeah. Yang terhormat Pak President and distinguished guests, I am from Sun Cable, a company that's helping ASEAN transform interconnectivity power projects. In Indonesia and Australia and Singapore, we're developing the world's largest solar power project, 20 gigawatts, the world's longest transmission system from Australia to Singapore, and we are building the world's largest battery. We are also investing $2.5 billion in Indonesia. We're creating 7,500 new jobs for Indonesia, and we are helping to think about connecting Eastern Indonesia. We are helping Singapore decarbonize by providing low-cost electricity to Singapore, decarbonizing the economy. We are also exploring connectivity in Eastern Indonesia, from Java to Kalimantan. We're looking at Kalimantan to Sulawesi. We're looking from Sumba, Sumbawa, Lombok and Bali for using undersea cables. It's the future of energy, and we are here to help ASEAN become interconnected through power. Thank you very much, Pak. Silakan, dan terima kasih banyak atas dukungannya. And the President of Indonesia has been very, very helpful in making our project move forward. And we're very, very grateful. Matur nuwun Pak, terima kasih banyak, and thank you, leaders, for your attention. Yeah, grid, and power, energy, solar PV, sama nanti angin Pak. Yeah, terima kasih.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. So I would introduce the Indonesian Battery Corporation. We are now working with the two biggest EV battery players in the world. And the investment is over $10 billion. And what we are creating is actually from our nickel mine all the way to the nickel matte, nickel sulfate, and the batteries. So this is all integrated. And as you can see, now we can have the battery cells put into the batteries. Now the batteries itself, we can see that we have developed the battery management system. And Your Excellency, this is a very good cooperation for the ASEAN, because we have enough nickel and batteries to supply the ASEAN requirements. So I think the cooperation in the future for the EV batteries and EV ecosystem will be very beneficial, not just for the ASEAN region, but for the entire Asia-Pacific region. If you have any... Yes, we will have one standard, Mr. President. So as you can see, we have the battery swapping system so that the motorcycle can easily swap the batteries, not just charging. So it will take only 30 seconds to swap. So this is very important for the ride hailers. So we have this also in the cooperation, and would be very good kind of a business cooperation to have this kind of infrastructure of the EV ecosystem. Thank you very much.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pak Presiden, Majesty, Excellency, Pertamina geothermal present install capacity right now at 670 megawatts. With 35 years of experience, we are going international, we're going abroad. But our immediate goal right now is to be 1 gigawatt companies in 2 years. With that, we are constructing in South Sumatra a 55 megawatts geothermal plant to electrify about 55,000 houses in South Sumatra. The project location is in Muara Enim in South Sumatra, around 300 kilometers from Palembang. This is an extension project of Lumut Bala Unit 1, 55 megawatts. Now we're building 55 megawatts Unit 2. The resource capacity is 220 megawatts. The cooperation of the projects is between Japan, China, and Indonesia. From Japan, Marubeni Corporation. From China, ke-43, a power construction company. And from Indonesia, Wika Wijaya Karya. And JICA, Japanese International Cooperation Agency, is helping the loan around USD 700 millions. So the objective of the project is to make sure we are mitigating climate change, we are supporting the 23% electrification by renewable, and of course, to reduce the 580,000 CO2 equivalent per year CO2 equivalent. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you, Pak. Thank you. Thank you.
Selamat siang, Bapak Presiden. And I'm representing the PLN, the National Electric Company, and we begin the journey of the net zero emissions 2 years ago. We already removed 13 gigawatt of coal in the planning phase. We already devised the greenest national electricity planning in the history of Indonesia. 51.6% additional generation capacity is coming from renewable energy. Now, we come up with the accelerated renewable energy development. There is a mismatch between the location of the large-scale renewable energy in those remote areas with the epicentrum of demand in Java. That's why we built what we call the green enabling supergrid. With that kind of a supergrid, we are able to increase the additional generation capacity. 32 gigawatt is coming from renewable energy. 32 gigawatt, Papa. And then also, we built a new smart grid, hence increasing the variable renewable energy from 5 gigawatt to 28 gigawatt. This is mainly a solar and wind. In that regard, we are able to achieve the net zero emission by 2060. There is roughly additional 150 billion US dollars, and that's going to be the presidential regulation of the accelerated renewable energy development. And this is one example of the project. Is to 192 megawatt peak, the largest floating solar power plants in Cirata. Cirata. And this is also the collaboration with Masdar, United Arab Emirates. And this is, for example, is this, how we build the launching pad here, and we employ roughly 1,500 local indigenous employees. Actually, we train in Cirata. And this is, we only use roughly 25% of the capacity. So we are able to increase this to become roughly 1 gigawatt capacity. But Pak, sudah siap untuk diresmikan tanggal 27 Oktober ya Pak? Ya Pak. Ya Pak. Jadi sudah lebih. And the accelerated renewable energy development is going to be the new platform, how we going to be able to harness every single potential of renewable energy, wind, solar, hydro, geothermal, and even current. And then also, this is based on the collaboration. Thank you very much. And this is also a baseline for the Asian power grid, because there will be additional connection to Malaysia, to Sabah, and then also to Singapore. Terima kasih.
Should we start? Welcome to Bank Rakyat Indonesia Showcase, Your Majesty and Excellencies, Mr. President and senior leaders. BRI is the largest ultra-micro and MSMEs banking group in Indonesia. So here, UMI was aimed to serve the underserved of about 45 million ultra-micro customers in Indonesia. And we are giving access to banking services for bankable and feasible businesses, as well as providing empowerment programs in accordance with the customers' bankability and feasibility, in the hope that they can be lifted up and becoming commercial customers. To reduce the operational costs and risk of serving the ultra-micro segments, we implement the Senyum Mobile. So these Senyum Mobiles is a platforms for pipeline management as well as loan originations. With that, then the approval process of loans can be lowered to only 1 day. And right now, UMI and ultra-micro and micro segment contribute about 48% of BRI portfolio, which is very huge actually. And it's now becoming the key driver for Bank Rakyat Indonesia to go further into the future. And move on to the breeding agent. It's our innovations in fostering the financial inclusiveness of Indonesia. So with that, actually, our customers is provided by an app to serve the community around them 24/7. And we also, as a part of our contributions to the what do we call net zero emissions, we also have the so-called BRI tree planting movement. We are targeting in 2023, we will plant about 1.7 million trees in 2023. Last but not least, we also empower villages through the so-called Brilliant Village, now reaching out to 2,449 villages all over Indonesia. Thank you.
Mr. President, Your Majesty, and Your Excellencies, as the largest bank in Indonesia, Bank Mandiri is committed to support government's initiative on ESG. As of June 2023, our sustainable portfolio is 241 trillion rupiah, which is 25% of our total loan. And the share of green financing is 115 trillion rupiah. With this number, we have the biggest market share in green financing in Indonesia. In operation, we are proud to be the first bank to implement digital carbon tracking and committed to achieve net zero emission on operation by 2030. With this platform, we can actively monitor the reduction on emission at all our branches all over Indonesia. And we aim to become Indonesia's sustainability champion for a better future. Thank you.
Bapak Presiden, Your Excellencies, Your Majesty, welcome to the blue and green booth. My name is Donnie, I'm the Vice Chairman for Standard Chartered Bank for ASEAN. And Standard Chartered is the only international bank that operates in all the 10 ASEAN markets. We're very proud to be in the region. We've been here in many of the markets in ASEAN for over 150 years. Within the sustainability space, Standard Chartered is committed to be net zero by 2030 from our own operations. And we are going to be net zero from our own financing, so meaning actually all the clients that we finance by 2050. We committed $200 billion to support the sustainable finance by 2030. For ASEAN, we are also basically leading actually the Global Financial Alliance for Net Zero for the JETP, Just Energy Transition Partnership, $20 billion for Indonesia and $15.5 billion for Vietnam as part of the private sector sort of financing. Some of the projects actually that we have done here, I think the PLN CEO, Pak Darmo, actually has mentioned about Cirata, the largest floating solar panel in ASEAN. We lead the financing for that. And as you can see over here, actually we are this is going to be the largest actually in the whole of Southeast Asia and second largest in the world. We are also financing the largest power plant in Vietnam, in Hua Hai. This is 245 megawatt in Vietnam. So that's actually one of the leading renewable energy process that we have actually across ASEAN. The other point, Prime Minister, we are also setting up together with Temasek and SGX and our colleague here from DBS, the first Asia's carbon trading exchange with climate impact exchange in Singapore. So that's obviously a big thing actually now that the voluntary carbon market actually has risen. Last but not least, just to highlight to you, we have been the mainstay partner for many of the governments. Thailand supporting Thailand's issuance of 1.9 billion sustainability bonds, as well as supporting the largest sustainability bonds in local currency for the Republic of the Philippines in peso, $350 million. We are committed to Southeast Asia. Basically, we are here for good, and we will continue to keep our commitment actually in promoting sustainability in ASEAN. Thank you.
Your Majesty, Your Excellencies, good afternoon. Welcome to DBS booth. DBS is the largest bank in Southeast Asia, and we're strongly committed to sustainability. As a bank, we have done more than 60 billion of Sing dollar in terms of sustainable financing, and we are internally committed to go to net zero, similarly to Standard Chartered, in all our financing to 2050. In DBS, we map out the 9 sectors that creates a lot of emission, like power, auto, mining, shipping, and all that. And then we work on a path to net zero, and we track the pathway to get to net zero for these industries. In DBS Indonesia, we are trying to position ourselves to be a transition partner for our customers to work together on green solutions, sustainability-linked solutions, as well as transition loans. Some examples that we have done, we have a financial advisor for Indonesian Investment Authority, INA, helping them with the energy transition mechanism. We finance TBS Energy for a purchase of a medical waste management firm in Singapore. We have done for the ESG financing, the S part of it, we've done a social working capital loan to e-fishery, which is an aquaculture startup, and we help to make a better livelihood for the prawn and shrimp farmers. We also work on a green loan for State Grid Corporation of China, in working with PLN to do advanced metering infrastructure in Jakarta. So these are some of the green loans we have done, and we look forward to working with everybody to make the world a better place. Thank you.
Selamat sore, Pak Jokowi, Your Excellencies. Welcome to Google booth. I am Ryan, leading public affairs for Southeast Asia. In this booth, you have the information related to our commitment in supporting the region's digital economy. We focus on 2 key areas. One is on physical infrastructure, where we invest on subsea cable to make sure the internet connection in Indonesia and Southeast Asia faster. And also on the cloud region to make sure the digital transformation in businesses, supporting the businesses to grow. And we are also focusing on workforce, making sure digital literacy for all individuals in Southeast Asia becomes very, very advanced. And the region's digital economy is on track to reach $1 trillion by 2030, driven by e-commerce, travel, food delivery. So we are on track on that. But digital inclusion and awareness on environmental social governance remain hard work that we need to work together. And in Google, we have helped over 60 million individuals on digital skills, and we will continue to advance the digital literacy in Southeast Asia. Thank you.
Mr. President, Your Majesty, Your Excellencies, I'm Patrice Kane, Group Chairman and CEO of Thales. We are a long-lasting partner of Indonesia, mainly involved in 3 domains. Number 1, defense. where we bring key capabilities to your country, but also know-how and knowledge. And we are going to create a joint venture with PT Len to bring, again, technology, know-how, and high added value jobs in the country. We are as well committed to Indonesia to bridge the digital divide. Thanks to telecommunication satellites, we have delivered either to PSN Satria 1, which is the most powerful telecommunication satellite in service currently, but also to Telecom Indonesia. And last but not least, we ambition to be a partner of ASEAN, the new capital, to bring some unique pieces of technology, typically a digital ID wallet, cybersecurity features, digital security platform powered by AI to make this new city one of the safest cities in the world. And last but not least as well, unmanned traffic management to enable taxi drones, for instance, to as public service for each and every citizen of this new city. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, Your Majesty, Your Excellencies, I'm representing Bank Negara Indonesia 1946, Indonesia's first bank since our independence. We are one of the largest banks in Indonesia, and in line with Mr. President's direction, we are Indonesia's international bank. We cater all segments, corporate, SME, and retail. Today, we want to highlight our digital program called Expora, which is focused on small business, SME, which we launched 2 years ago. Today, we have more than 40,000 clients, SME clients, that we take to become exporters. 40,000 clients, SMEs from all over Indonesia, which we serve through 7 Expora hubs across Indonesia, west to east, and we bring them through our business matching into the international market. Going forward, we have at least 10,000 new SME clients that we will take into the international markets. What we do is we help the SMEs from the financing, training and education, digital system, cash management, and business matching. Thank you.
Welcome to Telkom Indonesia, Mr. President and Excellencies Leader ASEAN. To support digital transformation, Telkom has built 173,000 kilometers fiber optic from Sabang till Merauke. We have covered around 98% of population. This is the submarine mobile map for global connectivity. And for the digital platform, we have established data center focused on implementing sustainable and grid infrastructure. Now, we are building the hyperscale data center Batam in collaboration with Singtel, Singapore Telecommunication. And this is we have 30 data center all around Indonesia, and overseas there are Singapore, Hong Kong, and Timor-Leste. We are open to collaborate in any potential partnership to expand the data center market. Thank you.
Mr. President, Excellencies, and Your Majesty, I will present on behalf of the Injuni. Injuni is our holding company for aviation and tourism. Today I will present our project in Bali. This is our medical tourism. We developed 43 hectares in Bali for the medical tourism complex. We cooperation with Mayo Clinic for 6 Center of Excellence, and we also cooperate with 2 hospitals from ASEAN countries, one from Malaysia, the Alpha IVF, and the other one is from Thailand with the Vita Life for the wellness. The project will be open on next year, on the April next year. Thank you. This is now the project, Pak. April selesai, Pak. semua sudah lengkap Pak, sudah full Pak. Iya, ini rumah sakit sudah. Ini yang main Pak.
Mr. President, Your Excellency and Your Majesty, Telkomsel as a leading telco digital in Indonesia, we are now having IndiHome as our fixed broadband and serving more than 150 million of customers of mobile and more than 8 million of households across the nations. And we are now becoming house of payload with serving the biggest data traffic of broadband across the nation, more than 65% of payloads in our networks. And with IndiHome moving to Telkomsel, serving the home broadband, Telkom Indonesia now having 69.9% of Telkom sales, before is 65%. And we are committing to accelerating our digitalization of Indonesia with the biggest support of Telkom connectivity, more than 173,000 kilometers across the nations and serving 99% of coverage populations. We believe that we're going to support a creative economic of Indonesia. Thank you.
Bapak Presiden, Excellencies, welcome to Next Week booth. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here. So Netflix has been around in Southeast Asia since 2016. We are one of the largest streamers. We serve to more than 240 million subscribers all over the world. Our investment in Southeast Asia, especially in countries like Indonesia, we've been spending more and more in investing in local content. Why we've been investing in local content is because that is the gateway to actually promote our culture across other regions as well. So we have been doing many things in Indonesia, such as we've been working with the Ministry of Tourism in terms of promoting wonderful Indonesia, showcasing Indonesian titles, but we've also been working in Thailand as well, promoting Thai content as well, showing it off to the world as well. In fact, a very fun fact, most of the content that we do produce in the region is actually seen overseas. So 70% of the titles that we are seeing is actually shown outside of ASEAN. So with that, I would like to thank you once again for giving us the opportunity, and we look forward to working very closely with all of you. Thank you, Pak.
Pak President, Excellencies, I think we're somewhat different from the other exhibitors. What you see are corporates, and here is the British Chamber of Commerce in Indonesia. We've been here for 45 years, and we regard ourselves to some degree as facilitators or enablers or multipliers of British business and Indonesian business that are here in Indonesia. The British business community has created more than 3 million jobs in Indonesia, is working very, very responsibly across a wide range of sectors. As a chamber, we work very closely on the transition and upskilling and capability growth of education, for example. We'll be working with the IIF in London next month also. And many of our companies across all the sectors, you've heard from Standard Chartered, in the energy transition sector, in the FMCG sector, we are supporting the growth and development and progression towards net zero. And finally, we are the coordinating chamber across the ASEAN community for the British businesses in the region. So very much supporting Indonesia as a hub and the goal of integration across ASEAN. Thank you.
Yang terhormat Presiden Republik Indonesia Bapak Joko Widodo. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Selamat datang dalam acara penandatanganan Nota Kesepahaman Pembentukan Satuan Tugas Nasional Local Currency Transaction. Kerangka kerjasama Local Currency Transaction atau LCT merupakan salah satu kesepakatan dalam Leaders Declaration KTT ASEAN ke-42 di Labuan Bajo yang bertujuan mendukung stabilitas ekonomi dengan mendorong penggunaan mata uang lokal dalam transaksi bilateral antar negara ASEAN. Pembentukan Satuan Tugas Nasional ini melibatkan 10 lembaga negara dan kementerian. Selanjutnya, Bapak dan Ibu pejabat penandatangan dokumen, kami persilakan untuk menandatangani dokumen yang telah disiapkan. Kami mohon Bapak Ibu pejabat penandatangan dapat mengangkat nota kesepahaman ke arah kamera. Sekali lagi kami mohon untuk dapat mengangkat nota kesepahaman ke arah kamera dalam hitungan 3, 1, 2, 3. Ya. Langsung foto. Dilanjutkan dengan foto bersama. Para pejabat penandatangan dokumen kami persilakan menempati posisi foto bersama. Mohon izin kami hitung Bapak. Siap. 1, 2, 3. Sekali lagi. 1, 2, 3. Hadirin, dengan demikian usai sudah penandatanganan nota kesepahaman pembentukan Satuan Tugas Nasional Local Currency Transaction. Selanjutnya, Presiden Republik Indonesia berkenan meninggalkan tempat acara. Sampai jumpa di lain kesempatan. Wabillahi taufik wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Shopee 99 Super Shopping Day Midnight Sale 9 September dari tengah malam hingga 2 pagi. Ada gratis ongkir Rp0 semua toko, Shopee Live semua diskon 50% selama 24 jam, dan flash sale mobil Rp9.000. Shopee 99 Super Shopping Day Midnight Sale.
Saya mengucapkan selamat kepada pasangan kita, Bung Anies Baswedan sebagai calon presiden. Kepada Bung Muhaimin Iskandar sebagai calon wakil presiden.
Insya Allah bersama koalisi ini kita akan song-song perjuangan yang tentu tidak ringan, yang tentu akan banyak tantangan.
Insya Allah, Gus Imin, kita jalan bersama-sama, kita jalan bergandengan tangan, kita tengok ke depan. dan kita tengok dengan bukan hanya percaya diri, tapi karena kita yakin bahwa yang sedang kita ikhtiarkan adalah sebuah kebaikan untuk semua.
Kita berdiri memberikan aplaus kepada mereka berdua.
Selamat datang di Mata Najwa, saya Najwa Shihab, tuan rumah Mata Najwa. Ini adalah rangkaian perbincangan Mata Najwa dengan para kandidat yang akan ikut kontestasi pemilu 2024. Dan sudah hadir di narasi pasangan bakal calon presiden dan wakil presiden Republik Indonesia. Ada Anies Baswedan dan Muhaimin Iskandar. Selamat malam, selamat datang di narasi.
Terima kasih.
Mas Anies, Gus Imin.
Selamat malam, Mbak Nona.
Terima kasih sudah meluangkan waktu untuk hadir ke kantor narasi dan berbincang dengan Mata Najwa.
Alhamdulillah, kita juga senang.
Alhamdulillah.
Ini acara
pertama kali tampil kita. Ini acara nyari.
Saya baru mau nanya, jadi setelah deklarasi kemarin hari Sabtu, kegiatan pertamanya apa?
Ini Senin, ya. Itu
Kemarin?
Sabtu. Jadi hari Minggu masing-masing punya aktivitas. Saya di Medan.
Saya di
Simin,
Jombang.
Di Jombang. Jadi ini hari pertama kita sama-sama di Jakarta. Dan acaranya Mata Najwa.
Jadi kegiatan resmi pertama Cawapres datang ke Mata
Pertama
Najwa.
kali Senin ini.
Waduh, terima kasih. Oke. Yang jelas ini mengejutkan banyak orang. Peristiwa yang terjadi Sabtu lalu. Kalau untuk Anda berdua ini seberapa mengejutkan, Mas Anies?
Ya, kita selalu bersiap ya dengan situasi apapun. Tapi sebenarnya obrolan tentang ini semua memang waktunya berjalan relatif cepat. Itu memang betul. Karena dalam waktu yang dibilang pendek sejak hari Selasa pekan lalu. Walaupun mengenai harapan mengundang PKB-nya sudah lama. Di bulan Juni saya pernah sampaikan kepada Demokrat maupun Nasdem bahwa kita perlu mengajak PKB. Tapi belum pernah ada tanda-tanda sesudah itu. Tapi proses yang kemarin itu adalah cukup singkat ya.
Cepat dan mengejutkan. Buat Anda pribadi juga mengejutkan, Gus?
Ya, sebetulnya mengejutkan dan ini jalan Tuhan yang begitu cepat sekali diambil keputusan dan meskipun secara perkenalan, komunikasi sudah sangat lama. Sejak mahasiswa kita sudah saling bareng-bareng dan tentu keputusannya itu yang kemudian sangat cepat dan saya juga tidak menyangka secepat ini jalan Tuhan itu untuk mengambil keputusan.
Yang salah satu bagian yang paling menarik dalam deklarasi kemarin adalah ketika Gus Imin Anda berpidato dan ada bagian ini. Saya mau kita dengarkan dan saya mau minta tanggapan Anda. Apa maksudnya ini? Kita lihat yang ini.
Tapi sebetulnya ada cerita menarik Bang Surya. Tahun 2021 ya. Saya dipanggil Al-Mukarram Romo Kiai Khalil As'ad di Situbondo. Beliau hadir di sini. Beliau adalah putra Kiai As'ad Samsul Arifin pendiri NU. Saya dipanggil, Muhaimin, menurut saya kamu harus pasangan sama Anies Baswedan. Saya tidak berani menolak, tetapi saya juga tidak berani menjawab iya. Tapi saya masukkan di dalam batin saya, sambil jalan saya berbunyi begini, lu, gak bahaya ta?
Kenapa, Gus, dalam batin Anda, kenapa Anda berpikir berbahaya nih berpasangan dengan orang ini?
Pertama ini bahasa Jawa Timur. Jawa Timur itu kalau ada sedikit yang baru itu lu gak bahaya. Nah, itu bahasa yang sedang menjadi omongan sehari-hari. Tapi sebetulnya ada makna di balik itu adalah Ki Khalil ini memerintah berdasarkan keyakinan langit, kira-kira begitu. Nah saya gak berani nolak karena beliau itu selalu langit, gitu loh. Maka saya cocokkan dengan bumi. Buminya ini kayaknya kita agak sulit ya.
Di 2021 waktu itu?
Saya di koalisi pemerintah, sementara Pak Anies lebih banyak di koalisi.
Iya, masih di kantor gubernur waktu itu sebetulnya.
Tapi pengusungnya kan rata-rata
Ya,
di luar koalisi pemerintahan.
Nah, itu yang membuat, ini komposisinya mungkin itu satu. Yang kedua, persepsi orang nggak nyangka kita bisa bareng dalam suasana politik yang dinamis seperti ini.
Tapi hati kecil Gus memang merasa ada bahayanya nih berpasangan dengan Mas Anies.
Ini mau jujur atau mau saya tutup-tutupi?
Jujur dong. Gus Imin kan selalu jujur.
Ya, saya bilang bahaya itu memang realitas, ada komitmen bagaimana agar soliditas koalisi itu terjaga. Itulah koalisi yang sudah saya bangun dengan berbagai partai, kemudian ingin berlanjut, kemudian ya banyak yang memang harus dijaga perasaannya lah kira-kira gitu.
Oke, karena kemudian seperti gayung bersambut, pidato Anda Mas Anies di deklarasi, Anda berkali-kali menyebut diksi berani, nyali untuk menggambarkan pasangan Anda yang baru. Jadi memang menurut Anda itu salah satu kriteria yang harus dimiliki untuk menjadi pasangan Anda, punya nyali karena berbahaya tadi?
Ya, karena ya rute yang kita jalani selama ini itu rute yang penuh tantangan. Rute penuh tantangan. Dan itu apa kita alami. Jadi bagi kegiatan-kegiatan kita selama ini juga bukan sesuatu yang mudah. Bahkan kita merasakan banyak pihak yang khawatir bila bertemu, khawatir bila terekspos bersama, itu fakta. Dan minimal kekhawatirannya itu pada bagaimana menjelaskannya. Okay?
Gus Imin, Anda pernah khawatir bertemu Mas Anies tidak? Atau sebaliknya, sebelum deklarasi ini?
Oh ya, tentu sangat hati-hati. Karena akan, misalnya ketika saya sudah koalisi dengan Pak Prabowo, itu sangat hati-hati ketemu Pak Ganjar, ketemu Pak Anies, itu sangat hati-hati.
Ya, karena kan minimal itu menjelaskannya harus, apa nih jelaskan? Apa ada hal-hal lain di luar kesepakatan misalnya. Jadi minimal itu yang menjadi kekhawatiran. Jadi memang
saya jadi teringat, kalau tolong koleksi kalau salah, tapi bukankah Anda berdua sempat haji bareng ya kemarin?
Oh ya, tapi haji kayak begitu ramenya kan nggak sempat ketemu.
Tidak sempat ketemu. Oke. Jadi
tapi kalau haji itu kan apa ya, juta orang di sini.
Oke. Karena kan sempat ramai ada bertemu Mas Anies dengan Mas Ganjar dan Mbak Puan dan sebagainya.
Nah,
tapi momen
karena
itu
pada waktu itu kami dalam rombongan yang sama. Karena waktu itu undangan sehingga di dalam hotel yang sama.
Ada juga peristiwa di haji yang saya terkagum-kagum ya. Ada ke-43 dari Jawa Tengah. Beliau memimpin 150-an jamaah haji. Saya dipanggil ke hotelnya. Saya sowan seperti biasa, setiap kiai yang bisa saya sowan. Beliau itu tiba-tiba bilang, Muhaimin, saya sudah istikharah. Jodohmu itu Anies.
Stargazer X, unleash the X in you.
Ya, kita anggap itu masukan. Kok begitu Kiai? Ya sudah, camkan aja. Saya tidak pakai komentar dan saya tidak follow up dengan itu. Tapi itu kemudian membawa ke alam sadar di dunia maya dan langit ini yang menuntun supaya ketemu, akhirnya hari ini ketemu.
Jadi ada banyak sinyal-sinyal.
Dan ini saya tambahin yang terkait nih. Gus Imin belum dengar ini juga. Pada hari Kamis kemarin saya di Bandara Juanda. Lalu datang menyongsong saya Gus Munif dari Pasuruan. Dan beliau mengatakan, Pak Anies, ini saya minta 5 menit. Saya ini udah buru-buru, Gus, harus boarding. Buru hari Kamis ini. Hari Kamis, dan beliau bilang ini ada pesan dari ke-43 kepada saya. Pesannya supaya berpasangan dengan Muhaimin. Pada waktu itu kita sudah tahu ada percakapan. Kan hari Kamis, 2 hari sebelum. Tapi kan beliau tidak tahu atas ini semua. Jadi saya bilang, sampaikan pada ke-43, mohon doanya. Mudah-mudahan apa yang beliau sampaikan itu mudah-mudahan ada jalannya.
Dan ke-43 saya hampir tidak pernah ketemu. Ketemu di haji itu. Karena beliau rumahnya agak jauh di Purworejo. Dan ke-43 ini sangat terkenal karena murid Sayyid Muhammad Al-Maliki. Bahkan murid kesayangan. Sampai ada sumur di rumah Sayyid Al-Maliki ini. Bi'rut Toifur. Sumur Toifur. Beliau terkenal ahli istikharah. Dan kalau istikharah biasanya muncul Nabi menemui dan seterusnya.
Kan kalau beliau kan dapatnya sudah, diberitahunya lama. Kalau saya sudah ada pembicaraan itu. Kan pada hari Kamis itu pertemuan Gus Imin itu hari Selasa. Jadi kalau saya dapatnya pesan itu sesudah ini semua berjalan.
Dan saya ingin masuk ke situ, Mas Anies, Gus Imin. seberapa jauh, saya ke Mas Anies dulu, seberapa jauh Anda sebetulnya terlibat dalam proses ketika akhirnya memutuskan Gus Imin menjadi pasangan? Karena yang tampak di publik, keputusan ini diambil oleh Bapak Surya Paloh selaku Ketua Umum Nasdem, dan Anda hanya ditugaskan untuk menjalankan keputusan itu selayaknya seorang petugas partai, menjalankan keputusan.
Ya, apabila Pak Surya Paloh mengajukan nama yang tidak relevan dengan usaha pemenangan, dan saya harus melaksanakannya, maka saya petugas partai. Semata-mata menjalankan. Tapi, kalau yang dibawa namanya adalah yang sesuai dengan kebutuhan kita. Seperti saya sampaikan tadi, di bulan Juni, kepada semua saya sampaikan kita perlu mengundang PKB. Kenapa? Karena kita lemah di Jawa Timur, lemah di Jawa Tengah, dan kita membutuhkan partai yang punya basis kuat di sana. Jadi ketika ada nama ini adalah nama yang sesuai dengan kebutuhan. Disebut bila beliau bawa nama kemenakannya, adiknya, anaknya, kerabatnya untuk dijadikan pasangan, dan saya harus mengikuti, ya namanya petugas partai. Tapi kalau sesuatu yang sesuai dengan kebutuhan kita, bisa muncul nama itu dari mana saja. Dan pada waktu itu, Pak Surya Paloh itu berada dalam situasi di mana begini gambarannya. Bertemu dengan kesempatan, nanti mungkin Gus Imin bisa cerita prosesnya. Beliau dalam situasi, saya berunding dulu dengan PKS dan Demokrat, baru nanti bangun kesepakatan dengan PKB. Risikonya mungkin PKB sudah diajak oleh yang lain dulu. Atau bangun kesepakatan sekarang, lalu menjelaskan kepada PKS dan Demokrat, risikonya mereka merasa dilewati dan tidak diajak bicara. Dan ini sebuah ijtihad nih. Kemudian Pak Surya Paloh memilih opsi yang pertama, ambil kesepakatan dulu, terus kemudian jelaskan. Memang ada risiko. Risikonya ada perasaan seperti dilewatkan, tinggalkan. Termasuk ketika ketemu dengan saya. Jadi ketika bertemu, saya sampaikan, Pak Surya Paloh begini, ini ada 2 partai lain yang sudah dalam percakapan selama beberapa bulan terakhir ini. Saya harus berbicara dengan mereka. Harus menjelaskan dan menyampaikan inilah opsi baru yang selama ini tidak ada di dalam percakapan kita. Ya, itulah yang terjadi. Jadi, kalau yang ditawarkan itu bukan solusi dan saya kemudian melaksanakan, ya itu namanya petugas. Tidak ada relevansinya untuk kemudian menyetujui. Tapi kalau itu adalah solusi, maka ini sesuatu yang masuk akal untuk dibicarakan.
Gus Imin, sejak kapan percakapan dengan Pak Surya Paloh soal cawapres ini mulai berkembang secara serius? Apakah memang di malam itu, di Selasa malam, atau sebelumnya Anda sudah membuka pintu percakapan itu?
Saya baru sekali ketemu Bang Surya dan hasilnya itu bicara tentang Pilpres. Tidak pernah sama sekali. Nah, tapi ada peristiwa yang memang ini jalan Tuhan. Saya kira.
Sekali itu, maaf, sekali itu ya Selasa malam
ya
itu?
Itu dok. Saya tidak pernah ketemu dan saya tidak punya bayangan untuk berkoalisi dengan Nasdem. Nah, ceritanya sederhana sekali, tapi luar biasa. Ini saya bilang ini takdir. Jadi hari Senin itu Rakornas pemenangan pemilu. Saya tahu ini peserta Rakornas Indonesia ini pasti memaksa saya ngambil keputusan. Mereka udah nunggu lama untuk siap bergerak. Saya bilang banyak dimuat di media, saya sampaikan di pidato pembukaan. Untuk kali ini jangan sekali-sekali mengevaluasi saya soal Pilpres. Kasih waktu saya untuk melihat dinamika yang masih sangat tidak pasti. Tolong. Untuk Rakornas kali ini tidak bahas Pilpres. Kita khusus spesifik Pileg. Ternyata berkembang di situ. Berkembang keras dan bahkan di Rakornas itu muncul kesimpulan Muhaimin sama PKB ini ibaratnya pemegang mandat ideologi PKB, pemegang mandat cita-cita PKB, pemegang mandat ajaran-ajaran PKB dan NU serta Islam. Pesantren. Yang kedua, PKB pemegang mandat historis sejarah. 2 mandat ini tidak boleh berhenti stuck, tidak jelas arahnya kemana. Ibarat di rapat serius ini diputuskan adalah ideologi dan sejarah ini harus mengalir seperti air kemanapun tujuan itu ada. Mereka bersih kesimpulan koalisi hari ini stuck. Stuck sehingga air kalau terlalu stuck, kita tahu sendiri berbahaya. Air harus mengalir. Sebuah kesimpulan yang menurut saya di luar perhitungan saya, kok ada keputusan air ini harus mengalir cepat.
Stuck itu karena apa? Apa faktor yang kemudian membuat ini dirasa stuck? Koalisi ini koalisi sebelumnya kan?
Ya, mereka ingin segera kampanye saya dengan siapa. Mereka ingin gambar-gambar yang sudah ada Pak Prabowo dengan saya itu diperbarui yang sudah rusak-rusak itu. Mereka ingin segera memastikan caleg-caleg ini untuk bergerak siapa futur yang di samping caleg ini.
Jadi stuck karena belum ada kepastian apakah ketua umumnya akan maju dalam kontestasi.
Betul, belum ada gambaran. Nah, saya sudah melarang membahas itu, tetap aja dibahas dan diputuskan air harus mengalir. Keputusan itu, lalu saya datang ke acara ulang tahun PAN malam itu, tanpa saya duga ada pertemuan Pak Surya Paloh Selasa malam. Jadi malam berikutnya, 24 jam setelah keputusan teman-teman.
Yang menghubungi Pak Surya, Anda atau Pak Surya menghubungi Anda, Gus?
Saya dihubungi oleh staf saya bahwa akan ada Pak Surya Paloh mau minta ketemu dan saya juga sedang kosong, ya sudah silahkan.
Kenapa saya tanya, Gus? Karena saya ingin dapat konfirmasi. Jadi inisiatif untuk menjadi cawapres itu Anda yang menawarkan ke Surya Paloh atau sebaliknya Surya Paloh yang meminang Anda untuk Mas Anies Baswedan?
Tidak ada niatan malam itu ambil keputusan cawapres atau capres. Malam itu saya memutuskan untuk coba dijajaki oleh perintah Rakornas itu. Perintah Rakornas itu harus menjajaki. Maka terjadi diskusi di satu tempat bersama Bang Surya. Bahkan Bang Surya memulai dengan pertanyaan, kamu serius mau jadi calon wakil presiden? Loh, bukan hanya calon wakil presiden, Bang. Saya serius kalau bisa jadi calon presiden. Jangan kamu teruskan macam-macam kau. Wapres ya wapres. Gitu kan. Loh, katanya ditanya seriusnya mau apa? Disitulah saya jawab, loh saya pinginnya capres. Ya, kalau udah capres ya jangan diskusi sama saya lagi, dia bilang. Nah, saya sudah punya capres sendiri. Dia. Oke, saya minta kepastian. Nasdem, PKB, koalisi. Kalau kamu mau, PKB mau, ya sudah kita Nasdem sudah punya capres, PKB punya cawapres. Ayo koalisi. Loh, kan sudah punya calon-calon lain. Kita belum putus, tidak ada keputusan apapun dengan calon-calon lain. Saya nggak tahu cerita itu, sehingga saya tidak membayangkan kemudian Demokrat memisahkan diri, tidak pernah membayangkan. Bang Surya bilang pokoknya PKB Nasdem, wakil presiden PKB, presiden Nasdem. Oke, terjadi. Saya butuh waktu lah sedikit untuk bincang-bincang sama teman-teman. Saya harus ke DPP. Ya boleh ke DPP, balik-balik harus bawa surat. Surat MOU, ya draftnya kan harus disepakati, Bang. Maunya ke PKB kayak apa, maunya Nasdem kayak apa. Terus itu saya pulang ke DPP saya kumpulkan semua. Saya suruh kontak seluruh kiai-kiai, saya suruh kontak telepon panjang. Sampai Bang Surya yang biasanya pulang jam 10 dari Nasdem bisa pulang 12:30 ya waktu itu. Nunggu kepastian surat yang bisa kita keluarkan itu. Nah itu begitu cepat. Dan kita minta nasihat dari banyak pihak itu ya akhirnya alhamdulillah semua terkontak dengan cepat. Meskipun ada yang minta tidak bisa per telepon harus datang dan harus sowan.
Dan akhirnya keluar surat itu? Akhirnya
kita draftnya sepakat. Kita bikin, nah akhirnya dicocokin dan akhirnya pada tanggal 2 kita tanda tangan.
Oke, tadi Gus Imin mengatakan tidak memperkirakan reaksi seperti Demokrat dan sebagainya. Saya mau memutarkan, mungkin Anda juga sudah dengar Mas Anies, tapi saya mau memutarkan cuplikan pernyataan dari Ketua Majelis Tinggi Partai Demokrat soal perkembangan politik terkait pasangan ini. Kita lihat.
Kejar! Kejar apa aja? Hematnya dapat, dijemputnya cepat. Pesan Grab hemat sekarang.
Mereka tidak sidik, tidak jujur, tidak amanah. Berarti tidak bisa dipercaya dan mengingkari hal-hal yang telah disepakati. Tidak memegang komitmen dan janji-janjinya. Nah sekarang saja tidak sidik, tidak amanah, tidak memegang komitmennya. Bagaimana nanti kalau menjadi pemimpin dengan kekuasaan yang besar, rakyat akan diapakan?
Tanggapan Anda, Mas Anies?
Gini ya, nah sebenarnya saya tidak ingin menanggapi secara detail ini semua. Saya sangat hormat kepada Pak SBY, beliau adalah panutan, beliau adalah presiden yang sudah mengabdi 10 tahun, teladan. Dalam hal ini ada beberapa fakta yang terpaksa saya harus sampaikan di sini. Bahwa pada, ini makanya disebut dengan suratan takdir, Allah Maha mengatur. Pada mulai weekend, jadi ini saya buka tanggalan ya, supaya tidak salah. Mulai 27, 28, 29, jadi Minggu, Senin, Selasa, itu percakapan intensif di tim 8. Dan pada tanggal 28 itu, sudah ketemu situasi terjadi perbedaan pandangan yang tidak bisa dipertemukan. Apa perbedaan pandangannya? Saya mulai dari bulan Juni. Pada bulan Juni itu, saya sampaikan kepada Pak Surya Paloh, Nasdem, PKS maupun Demokrat, bahwa dari semua opsi wakil yang ada, yang tersedia sekarang adalah AHY. Saya sampaikan ke Pak Surya Paloh. Dan Pak Surya Paloh ketika saya mendengar itu, beliau tidak menolak. Tapi beliau mengatakan, begini, itu adalah opsi yang boleh kita lakukan pencalonan di ujung. Tapi tidak sekarang. Oke? Kemudian PKS memahami bahwa pilihannya memang AHY, yang tersedia AHY, kemudian Demokrat juga begitu. Lalu Pak Surya Paloh waktu itu bilang nanti kita bahas sesudah Bung Anies pulang haji. Oke? Saya berangkat haji. Nah sesudah pulang haji, mulai dari sisi Demokrat berharap itu segera dideklarasikan, segera disepakati. Dari sisi Nasdem tidak bersedia. Nama itu tidak ditolak, tetapi tidak dideklarasikan sekarang. Dicoba, dicari penjembatan sampai akhirnya tidak ketemu. Dan puncaknya itu pada hari Selasa, malamnya Selasa ada pertemuan yang mereka tidak tahu terjadi perbedaan ini. Di situ, di tim 8, utusan Demokrat dan utusan PKB terjadi perbedaan pandangan yang sangat keras. Bahkan sampai gebrak meja di situ. Apa perbedaannya? Perbedaannya begini, Demokrat menginginkan ditetapkan segera, Nasdem menginginkan ditetapkan nanti sambil menunggu. Menunggu apa? Menunggu siapa tahu ada opsi lain. Tapi kalau ditanya opsinya apa, juga nggak bisa jawab. Tinggal kita tunggu aja, siapa tahu ada opsi. Kita tidak tahu. Jadi kenapa harus buru-buru? Ya? Dan perbedaan itu kemudian tidak ditemukan.
Sampai gebrak meja?
Sampai keras sekali. Karena ada beberapa statement-statement yang dirasa kurang tepat. Dan malamnya, tanggal 28 malam, ini saya ada teksnya. Saya kirim WA kepada Pak Sudirman Said, utusan saya di sana. Saya sampaikan kepada beliau, boleh saya bacakan?
Ya. Sorry, ini 28 atau 29 Mas Anies?
Jadi ini hari Senin malam.
Hari Senin malam.
Jadi kan mulai Minggu, Senin sudah terjadi perbedaan.
Ya.
Puncaknya berakhir di Selasa sore.
Oke.
Pada 28 saya katakan begini. Pada Pak SBY disampaikan apa adanya. Nasdem tidak bersedia mendeklarasikan segera. Pada Pak SP disampaikan apa adanya. Demokrat bersiap permisi bila tidak deklarasi segera. Terus saya tulis, semoga Allah turunkan petunjuk kepada semua. Ini saya kirim Senin malam, tanggal 22. Senin malam jam 22. Pagi-pagi Pak Sudirman dengan Pak Dadang, utusan saya datang. Dia mengatakan, Mas, ini benar. Nggak mau dijembatani lagi. Saya bilang, sudah. Ini kita sudah usahakan menjembatani, tidak ketemu. Sudah, sekarang kita serahkan pada Allah. Ya serahkan pada Allah, tawakal Allah. Dan mereka bilang, Mas, ini artinya Mas Anies nggak dapat kendaraan loh. Artinya nggak dapat kendaraan. Ini Demokrat kalau disampaikan ini, berarti Demokrat potensinya akan keluar. Mau apa lagi? Ini kenyataan. Dan saya melihat bahwa jelas sikap Pak Surya Paloh tidak menolak AHY, tapi tidak mau sekarang. Sisi lain Demokrat menginginkan harus sekarang. Dan pada pertemuan hari Jumat malam dengan Pak SBY, beliau menyebut tanggal. Beliau meminta supaya sebelum tanggal 3 ada deklarasi. Selesai pertemuan dengan Pak SBY, saya bilang kepada semua, jangan pernah keluar kata tanggal 3 itu. Kenapa? Karena kalau itu disebut dan tidak terlaksana, maka kita tidak melindungi nama baik Pak SBY. Karena Pak SBY memberikan deadline. Tapi bila itu dilaksanakan, kita tidak melindungi harga diri yang lain merasa dipaksakan. Tapi terpaksa saya sebut angka tanggal 3 ini karena disebutkan dalam press conference akan-akan ada kesepakatan bahwa tanggal 3 ada deklarasi. Jadi begini pada malam itu, sore itu hari Selasa sudah terjadi ketidaksepakatan. Dan pertemuan berakhir dengan menyampaikan bahwa Demokrat silahkan bila mau melakukan opsi-opsi lain sudah selesai, tidak ada kesepakatan di sini. Ini
Mas Anies, saya mau mengkelirkan. Jadi Anda katakan bahkan sebelum rame-rame ini, Demokrat pun sudah bersiap, bahkan sudah memberikan ultimatum akan keluar dari koalisi.
Ya itu kan dalam percakapan. Dalam percakapan di tim 8 ada, bukan keluar koalisi. Mereka akan coba exercise lain. Ini mereka menunggu kapan ini keputusannya. Di sisi lain, kita tahu Nasdem bukan menolak AHY, tapi tidak mau dideklarasikan segera. Dan dua ini tidak bisa ketemu.
Dan yang tadi Anda sebutkan sudah deadlock sebetulnya. Pada hari Selasa itu sudah Selasa siang
maghrib.
sudah deadlock.
Ya, maka itu.
Dan Anda bersiap tidak dapat tiket ketika itu.
Ya, Selasa pagi itu sampai Mas Dadang yang dengan Dadang Mas Sudirman saya dua-duanya bilang, "Mas, ini kalau sampai yang Anda tulis itu disampaikan kepada keduanya, kemungkinan Anda nggak dapat tiket."
Mas Anies, saya tahu Anda membacakan itu dan bolehkah saya melihat teks itu, Mas Anies? Apakah Anda keberatan menunjukkannya ke pemirsa Mata Najwa teks itu?
Boleh.
Ini teks yang Anda kirimkan ke Mas Sudirman Said ya?
Ya, boleh. Dan saya katakan gini, kita sampaikan apa adanya, serahkan pada Allah. Biar Allah yang atur. Ikhtiar kita untuk mencapai kesepakatan sudah selesai. Dan dua utusan Nasdem, Pak Sugeng Suparwoto dan Pak Willy, dua-duanya tegas, tidak bersedia sekarang. Tidak mau, mereka tidak seperti garisnya Pak SP, tidak menolak, tapi tidak mau sekarang.
Mas Anies, saya mau konfirmasi beberapa hal yang kemudian muncul baik di rilis Sekjen Partai Demokrat maupun dalam pernyataan pers. Dan yang salah satu yang kemudian paling menonjol adalah ada surat, Mas. Surat yang beredar yang disebut sebagai tulisan tangan Anies Baswedan yang meminta AHY menjadi pasangan. Saya ingin tunjukkan suratnya dan saya ingin konfirmasi ke Anda. Apakah ini surat yang Anda tulis, Mas Anies?
Benar. Itu jadi begini, kan saya bilang tadi weekend itu, hari Jumat, utusan saya di tim 8 datang dan menyampaikan bahwa Pak Anies ini utusan dari Demokrat mungkin akan ditarik. Kenapa? Karena tugas yang diembankan kepada mereka tidak terlaksana. Jadi kemudian apa yang bisa dilakukan? Mereka meminta bahwa benar Anies menyampaikan pilihan yang ada adalah AHY. Dan itu sudah saya katakan kepada Nasdem sejak Juni, kepada PKS sejak Juni, kepada Demokrat juga. Tapi mereka bilang mereka tidak mungkin mendatangkan saya. Jadi mereka minta ada sesuatu lah yang tertulis, yang bisa ditunjukkan. Jadi dalam situasi begitu udah ambil aja dah. Saya minta ajudan, ambilkan kertas, saya minta ambilkan buku yang ada kertas bergaris, saya tulis sekarang. Jadi saya tulis, kalau itu dipersiapkan pasti kita siapkan pakai diketik yang rapi, sebagai surat resmi. Udah, saya tulis aja. Sekedar ini diberikan kepada utusannya Demokrat dan janjinya untuk mengatakan bahwa ini benar loh kata Pak Anies, bukan kata-kata saya. Caranya dengan ada tulisan, saya tulis. Janji ditunjukkan kepada Pak AHY, dibaca, sesudah itu dibawa lagi dan disimpan oleh Pak Sudirman. Dan bila ada tulisan jawaban dari Pak AHY, maka itu pun hanya saya baca dan dititipkan lagi ke Pak Sudirman. Jadi ini bukan sebuah surat yang untuk dipertontonkan. Kenapa? Karena ini untuk menyampaikan bahwa yang dikerjakan oleh utusan dari Demokrat sudah dilaksanakan dan ini memang benar. Jadi saya menulis kemudian untuk menyampaikan harapan apakah berkenan untuk menjadi pendamping. Nah, tidak ada pemotretan karena itu kami juga heran. Kok bisa ada fotonya? Karena setahu kita tidak pernah ada pemotretan dari Pak Sudirman ataupun yang lain.
Bahwa sekarang itu kemudian disampaikan sebagai bahwa Anda sudah tanda tangan hitam di atas putih. Dan bukan hanya tanda tangan, saya ingin mengutip Pak SBY sempat bilang, Anies menyampaikan kepada saya dan didengar oleh semua. Awal September ini berarti hari-hari ini akan mendeklarasikan koalisi ini dalam kapasitasnya Capres dan Cawapres.
Mohon maaf sekali. Kalau boleh saya sampaikan. Sama sekali tidak ada pembicaraan nama di dalam pertemuan apapun. Baik dengan Pak Surya Paloh, baik dengan Ketua Majelis Syuro, Habib Salim Segaf Al-Jufri, maupun dengan Pak SBY. Tidak ada percakapan nama. Dan itu saksinya banyak sekali. Mohon maaf sekali, saya harus sampaikan. Jadi ini faktanya. bahwa tidak ada percakapan nama. Betul bahwa disampaikan sebaiknya sebelum tanggal 3 sudah harus deklarasi. Kenapa? Alasannya logis. Alasannya adalah untuk kampanye perlu waktu. Tidak cukup kalau nanti mepet waktunya. Jadi alasan-alasan logis. Nah, tetapi tidak ada kesepakatan itu. Bahkan saya ingin garis bawahi di sini. Yang bisa menuliskan pencalonan itu bukan capres. Yang bisa mencalonkan itu adalah ketua-ketua partai yang bisa mencalonkan. Saya mengajukan opsinya. Ini opsinya. Saya dapat tugas untuk melakukan itu dan saya sudah kerjakan opsi itu. Makanya ketika jadi sampai di situ tuh, saya sudah lakukan tugas saya dan saya sampaikan opsi yang tersedia sekarang tinggal AHY. Kemudian terjadilah deadlock gitu. Hari Selasa sore. Dengan terjadinya deadlock itu selesai. Malam itu saya sedang dalam perjalanan, dilaporin tentang pertemuan yang hasilnya buntu. Lalu dalam perjalanan saya mendapatkan telepon dari kantor Nasdem, diminta untuk ke kantor Nasdem hari Selasa malam. Jadi saya kantor Nasdem dan ketemu di situ Pak Surya Paloh itu kira-kira jam 9, setengah 10 malam lah. Tidak pernah ada pertemuan jam setengah 10 malam mendadak. Lalu menceritakan yang tadi diceritakan oleh Gus Imin. Nah, ketika itu saya sampaikan, Pak Surya Paloh, ini opsi yang kita tidak pernah pikirkan. Saya bilang istilah saya unthinkable. Tak terfikirkan. Lalu gimana? Saya akan coba bahas juga dengan teman-teman di PKS dan Pak Surya Paloh jelaskan, saya ada pilihan ngobrol dulu, tapi kemungkinan nanti PKB ditarik yang lain, atau ambil kesepakatan dulu dan baru jelaskan. Oke, kalau gitu malam ini juga. Jadi sekitar jam 12 malam saya ngontakin Pak Sudirman. Waktu itu beliau saking lelahnya itu beliau udah tidur atau dipijat malam itu kecapean. Saya datang ke rumahnya. Sampai rumah jam 12 malam. Lalu di situ kita bahas soal ini, kita teleponin. Utusan saya yang satunya Pak Dadang bisa datang, ngontakin semua utusan PKS maupun Demokrat. Mencoba malam itu ketemu. Sampai 1:30 gak ada hasil, ya sudah besok pagi. Lalu besok paginya Pak Dirman bertemu dengan Pak Sohibul Iman dari PKS dan juga Pak Iftitah dari Demokrat. Menyampaikan progres ini. Dan tujuannya untuk saya bertemu. Untuk saya kemudian mendiskusikan soal ini. Dan inilah yang kemudian PKS merespon. Dan kita bisa bertemu dengan PKS. Dan ketika bertemu dengan PKS, PKS menyatakan bahwa secara material kita senang karena ada partai baru yang bergabung dalam koalisi. Tapi secara prosedural kami tidak suka karena keputusannya diambil oleh Nasdem secara sendirian tanpa berkonsultasi pada kita. Tapi materialnya cocok bahwa ini adalah sebuah opsi yang menarik. PKB bisa bergabung. Itu, Demokrat tidak bisa berjumpa. Hari Rabu sesungguhnya saya terjadwal berangkat ke Jombang yang sudah dijadwalkan 10 hari sebelumnya. Bertemu dengan kiai-kiai di Jombang. Ada 4 pondok yang didatangi. Nah, saya tunda berangkat ke Jombang supaya bisa bertemu dengan pihak Demokrat. Dan selama ini kalau mengatur pertemuan itu cepat. Udah, kali itu tidak bisa. Tidak ada waktunya, tidak ada kabarnya, lewat ajudan lewat itu tidak berhasil. Kami sabar menunggu sampai malam. Hari Rabu malam itu tidak dapat waktu. Ya sudah, kalau begitu kita cek besok. Pagi tetap tidak ada kabar, akhirnya saya putuskan hari Kamis pagi saya berangkat ke Jombang karena siangnya akan pulang. Lalu ketika di sana kami dapat kabar diterima jam 4 sore.